nothing can save ya, cause this is the season of funky behavior. I came to relax your mind, you can recline. On what? On this here rhyme. I like the style, I'm staying for a while. It helps me show cats that I'm versatile. I'll touch your dial, turn your frown to a smile. I'll make you feel like you're having a child. So relax and open up, child. I'm about to make you walk what? Pimp style or pimped out style. You don't understand the logic. See, if you don't have it all, I'll take a deposit. I got shit for you, it's alright indeed. It's like going to the garden and planting the seed. It might tickle for a second, but it won't bleed. So just relax, just hear the dope cry. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Just relax and just hear the dope cry. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Your entertainment at the same time, edutainment. In other words, you could call it bent. What I'm saying is that I'm here at your service. It's hard work, but then again, I deserve this. I'm helping people enjoy their spare time. I'm like an instructor when I'm doing my rhyme. Relax and just hear the dope track. It's really not all that, it's not like a gag. We like that when everything is relaxed and chill. You don't have to get fucked up or take pills, cause I like being myself, it feels good. Yo, it makes my meals taste good. 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 So just relax. It's your dope track. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Just relax and hear a dope track. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Just relax. My mind state, now balloon, it won't inflate. Just take the buzz, this much wiser kid, fuck the shade. And take it to a lower level, and dig a ditch for a devil. Got some more kids and pass the shovel. Dig a hole, take them on a spiritual roll. Lyrics unfold, either that or unroll the scroll. Episodes keep reoccurring and stifling. People's vision get blurring, their hearts start murmuring. I'm about 5 times iller than a Sherman. Introspection is God's gift to the miracle. I freak material, lamb's milk without the cereal. When MCs say your booty, they mean venereal. Your fake material hip-hop killers, they more faking than fucking Michael Jackson and Thriller. The status of a hoe, Quanto Costa. They wanna know how much it costs, kid, I bet Paquito me just relax and just hear a dope cry. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Just relax and just hear a dope cry. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Just relax.
Yes, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 8:34, December 22nd. And yeah, that makes it 2:34 Eastern Standard Time in the USA. It's 8:34, that's Central European Time for us over here in the EU. In parts of Africa, half of Africa, people in this hemisphere. And that Pacific time, I guess that's going to be 11:34, right? I think so, PM, steady. And I hope everybody had a good weekend. I mean, I actually did have a good weekend. Thankfully, thank the gods for another good weekend for myself. I mean, you know, and I hope anyone else, you know, that checks out my program or in the world had a good weekend, man. Shit, even if you didn't listen to my program, man, because I know the world is not always a nice place to wake up to, and people don't choose that for themselves. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's be honest. You know, some bombs might mess up some of you millionaires' plans, you know, to have a nice day. You know what I'm saying? If you're not a billionaire, you probably are not safe. You see what I mean? Right about now. So, yeah, Indiana. Hey, how you doing, Indiana? Yeah, I see Aladdin also. Hey, man, Bung Holio. Yeah, I don't even know what that means. Is it Spanish? Is it Spanish? But in any case, yeah, big up to everybody, no matter where you from, you know, but, Yeah, like I was saying, I had a good weekend, and I hope you did too. And the news, the news cycle, it was that weekend news cycle. I don't know how many of you caught it, but today we're gonna get into that a little bit later. I actually had the live stream planned for some point this weekend, but I had to put it off because number one, I had some events. You know, one of my niece actually had a birthday, so I had to take some time to do that also, and then some activities, of course, with my kids and things like that. My two younger ones, right, and so we had a nice time. It is that time of year, so people are going to be getting more together for these winter activities, right? For the winter solstice activities, where some people are doing Christmas, other people are doing Hanukkah, other people are doing something else, like around this time. This was an ancient time, for holidays. You know what I'm saying? Jesus loves you. He's our Lord and Savior. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Also, right back at you. For people that, practice Christmas, people that believe in Jesus in that particular way, in a religious way, or however you do, but this is a particular time. This is an ancient time, right? This time of the year is an ancient one. It's one people have been celebrating since the beginning of times, this time period where you get less light hitting the earth, right? And in some places, if you're on the equator, it probably doesn't matter, right? But that's also worth noting. But people that live a little bit south of the equator and a little bit north of the equator, they can really notice this time period. And I'm one of the people. I live in Copenhagen, Denmark, right? Although I'm an American citizen, I've been living here for decades now, right? 2 decades. And it does get dark. Like, it's dark right now. It's 8:37. It's still dark. The sun has not come up, in case you don't know. And it's going to go down around 6 o'clock, something like that. And every day up until it will be like that, even more darkness up until next year. It starts turning around in the mid-January, something like that, right? Isn't that right? We got about a month of only a couple of hours of sun a day. So take your vitamin D pills if you're a person that's what the doctors recommend. If especially everybody, vitamin D is good for everybody, but especially if you're a person that has, skin tone that is a little darker, right? Then you need more, because that pigment, it has a way of blocking the sun, right? And for people that have browner skin, that's very good when you're under a lot of light all the time. But when you're under less light all the time, it kind of overblocks certain rays. So you might want to keep that in mind. Some people, however you adjust your diet for that. Some people don't take vitamins or whatever. But in any case, having said that, I'm glad that everybody is here. And the chat is open, right? So as long as the trolls stay polite, you see what I mean, and respectful, it's going to remain open. I like to keep the chat open because it essentially, allows people who are not subscribers to participate. Everybody, believe it or not, a lot of people listen that don't want to subscribe. I don't know if you've seen that. I have a lot of listeners. Let me tell you about that. I have a lot of listeners, and a lot of them don't subscribe. But let me tell you, they listen, and for whatever purpose. Right now, if you're hearing the stream, go and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Click the like button if you don't know that helps out for more people to get the algorithm. 2 seconds here. All right, so so let me see here. Now, where we're going to start today is not the legacy media. I always like to cover legacy media and other media, right? Independent media also, right? But today, as promised, we're going to do a little exercise that doesn't have much to do with legacy media at all, because legacy media doesn't really carry the story. Independent media, I mean, does independent media talk about the tax system and do comparative data on the EU and the tax system? i.e., what do you get for your taxes? What do you get for your? Because let's think about this. Taxes, it's really about loyalty, right? In some kind of way. It's not loyalty per se, but it's one way you could examine one's loyalty, right? Right, to the country. Do you pay taxes? What percentage of the money that you make do you pay in taxes? Because that's kind of like, involves more than just yourself. And let's be honest here. Loyalty, right? It is not about just yourself. You cannot claim to be a proud American if you don't give a fuck about nobody else but yourself. Okay, just go ahead and be that person if that's what you want to be, but don't claim you're a proud American if you don't give a fuck about any other American but yourself. You see what I'm saying? And let's be clear. Do it by the ways evidence suggests it has been done and is a norm. You see what I mean? Don't try to cut out certain Americans you don't give a fuck about. No, that's called not giving a fuck, because those Americans also died for the country from the very beginning. Okay, so you don't get to pick and choose what American now you get to acknowledge. No, you acknowledge the blood right. Okay, you acknowledge the sacrifice right. That's what it means to kind of be a proud American. You see what I'm saying? These kind of things. I mean, so if you all for yourself, you don't have to acknowledge anybody who died for the country. Go off in your corner, fuck you by yourself. Okay, you don't have to wave the American flag while you all about yourself. And if you don't pay your share in taxes, right? I mean, some people can't. If you don't have a job, you don't have a job. You can't pay, right? But if you do have a job, if you do have a company, if you are, above water, or not sinking, but above, and that's good enough. Maybe you're not flying, but you're not sinking. That's good. Those people, pay every single day of their life, every hour and those dollars help support everybody else. You see what I mean? And so that's, in my view, that's really what it's like to be an American, a proud American, being part of a society, being together, holding hands side by side, holding each other up. You see what I mean? Society, civilization. You see what I'm saying? Like those kind of things. So it's very clear when we talk about this. Let's be clear about what it is so that nobody gets to cheat the system. Okay. So and other people know what I'm talking about. You could adapt this model to being a proud Dane, being a proud, being a proud Chinese person, by the way, being a proud Japanese person, being a proud Nigerian, being a proud Somali, being a proud, maybe, I don't know what the tax systems are like, but you could look at some of the other things too, still holding each other up, right? Still honoring sacrifice, right? That's also there. See, so it's a lot of things that qualify what being a proud citizen is. So I just wanted to cover that. Now, one of the things is taxes. What do you pay in taxes? Or what's the tax system like? Let's say we got a president, who says that he's proud, right, to be an American. Let's take that model over and say, okay, well, how does that work for him? Does he pay his fair share in taxes? Or am I paying a little more of my share in taxes? Right. Does he accept or acknowledge all the people that gave blood sacrifices to the country? Right. Because let me tell you, slavery wasn't for free. Dying in war is not for free. You see what I mean? Like, if you've done any of those things, like, hey, you made a blood sacrifice to the country existence. We talking about the United States of America. That means your ancestry gave sacrifice time and time and time and time again. And by the way, I'm sure there's a lot of Americans out there that know what I'm talking about when I'm saying those things. Like, did they die for nothing? Did your ancestors die for fucking nothing? Is that what it's going to be? Okay. You could try to play that word game and act like when you say you're a proud American that you're not talking about these type of things. So we got people that died for the country. We got people that were enslaved for the country and died. And we got people that slaved for the country, died for the country, and paid taxes for the country. You see what I'm saying? For generations. You see what I'm saying? And we need to acknowledge each other. And when we fully acknowledge that, that's when I think you can call yourself a proud American. You see what I'm saying? Because I know my ancestors didn't stand up there and battle alone. They didn't go out there and say, let me take my gun and solve this problem about the British. No, nobody's ancestors said they did any of that alone. Nope. That wasn't what it was about. It wasn't about, hey, man, I think this is going to be good for my pockets today. Let me go fight the British. No. You see what I mean? It wasn't about none of that. That was not an individual thought. That was organized society standing side by side together, lining up and handling the problems. And that's what big projects are like. You know what I'm saying? By the way, big social projects, big, what could we call socialized projects? A socialized project, one paid for by the taxpayers, by everybody, the total sum. You see what I mean? Everybody socialized, that wasn't a big businessman's idea. You see what I mean? The creation of the United States of America, going into the war, just one little businessman. No. That might have been the king's way of looking at it, but that wasn't what the United States, the Americans' way of looking at it was. They were like, fuck the king, we need our rights. And that's exactly what gave birth to the United States. And rights have been broadened the entire time. You see what I mean? Since that moment. So now, since we covered pride. Now, don't get me wrong. You can be proud of a whole lot of shit. You could be proud of being a stank ass. You could be proud of being a racist bigot. You could be proud of being a misogynist. You see a lot of people are proud of that, right? I'm actually proud. Hey, you could do that. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying don't confuse that with being a proud American, because just because you're a bigot or a misogynist and you're proud of it doesn't make you a proud American. What the fuck? Anybody could be a bigot and a misogynist. Everybody can't pay their fair share in taxes. Everybody can't lay their life down for the country. Everybody's ancestors didn't slave for the countries. Everybody didn't go through all of that and all of that, which is part of the becoming, right? The nexus. You see what I'm saying? Of what it is to be an American. You see what I'm saying? Everybody didn't do that. You see what I mean? So you can be a bigot in 1,000 trillion languages. You could be a misogynist in a million cultures, ethnicities and cultures around the world. It's not special. You see what I mean? It's not really that special. But when you get into the pride thing, and your fair share thing and the sacrifice thing, let's find out who's really proud. Let's see who's going to line up and stand there together on the front line. It ain't going to be Trump. That's for damn sure. It ain't going to be Elon Musk. Nope. Nowhere to be found. He won't be there to be found. Because he got 3 citizenships, by the way. Goddamn, that's a lot of pride to spread, right? Does one individual have that much pride? That's a whole lot of fucking pride, man. It's like, damn, you got to be proud about 3 different countries and shit. Like, but you only live in one? Like, something doesn't sound right. I mean, I don't think it's possible, especially when you have all that money. It's like, to me, it almost seems like you don't need pride in a country because you can just own the fucking world, But in any case, Eric, what's up? Now, let's go, Cuban. What's up, Cuban Crisis? Now, let's go in. I've been good. Thank you for that. I hope you've been good, too. Now, let's get into the data part and just let's keep it plain and simple, because again, taxes ain't special. A whole lot of countries, people pay taxes. We know what a tax system is. We know how it was founded and blah, 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 la, 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 right? We know what it's supposed to be used for. There's no imagination. There's no spookifying it, what taxes is supposed to be for, okay? Your taxes definitely are collected on a state and federal level and are used in definition used to hold up society, to make sure society is functioning, right? To make sure people can do the everyday things that they need to do, right? to take care of themselves and to also contribute, right? Because what is really taking care of yourself? Is taking care of yourself contributing? I mean, what good is that? What good is that to somebody else? Oh, you take care of yourself. Okay. What good is that? What about your contribution? Right? Most people contribute through their labor, right? Through what they do, what they offer someone else, right? Isn't that holding yourself up? What you offer, right? Pay the world's bills. Yeah, okay. You do that. Pay the world's bills. Pay the world's bills, BV. Yeah, but here's the thing. Most people do that, right? Isn't that what you like? What's your skill? What's your trade? What do you do? What's your labor? What is that? Are you an engineer? Right? Are you a lawyer? Right? Are you what do you lay sewage lines across the country? You're an electrician. Like, what is your trade? What do you offer someone else in society? Right? So that's also another way to look at contributing, right? Because if you don't contribute, you don't have anything to offer, then it kind of, that when you get into that area, that's where, a lot of people, tend not to want to be, especially in countries where people, especially it hurts even more when you don't have rights. When you're in that situation and you can't generate anything for you of no service to society, right? And then you don't even have rights. Well, that's all out oppression at that point. But in any case, we're going to just keep it to the taxes, right? And what the society we live in. We live in the Western world. I live in Copenhagen. I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C. You see what I'm saying? And so the tax systems tend to, in definition, be exactly for the same purpose, right? For things to get along, it's transportation, roads, right? Clean water, big projects that others can't do, education, healthcare. These are things that benefit everyone else. I'll give you an example of the roads. If I need to get to work, right, and I'm the only person working, right, but nobody else can work because the average person doesn't have the amount of money that I have. I could take a helicopter, but the rest of y'all got to ride to work. Well, if all my employees are driving to work, I would want the state to make sure that these roads are okay for them to do that on, since and we're all going to contribute a little bit to make sure that happens. I would like my employees to be able to drink some clean water, right? So the government is going to have a role in what clean is and monitoring it to make sure that it's functioning well. So we get some progress out of this bad boy. So we get some production happening, you know what I mean? So things can move, so people can thrive. Right? These are big project things. If you come into work, and you basically had no shower, you're going to stink up the place. If you see what I mean? If you basically had no health care, all you got to do is walk into the company and and you can kill everybody without health care. Yeah, you can, especially today. And not even especially today. Don't you know that's been happening in the history of humans? That's what's going on. That's what life is like for human beings, period. Especially if you don't have health care. And some people look at health care like it's seeing a doctor. Yeah, seeing a doctor is important. Discovering that first cough, and whether it's deadly or whether it's just one you're going to get over, that would be nice, right? That would be nice before you go to school. That would be nice before you go to work, right? That would be nice before you get on the subway. That would be nice before you get on the bus, right? That would be nice before you drink out of a water fountain or, use a toilet, right? A public bathroom, right? Space, or a private one. That would be nice, right? But there's other aspects to it. There's also vaccinations and things like this that go a part of health. You know what I'm saying? So they directly support us. So there's two sides of that, right? There can be different dimensions to it, preventative. And then also, the part that comes after if you do get sick or you get in an accident or things like that, that's healthcare. So we're going to look at things like that. I mean, those are the typical things in the West. Education, big projects individuals, small organization can't really tackle. That's where the government tends to step in. A good example of that is the military. You want to leave it up to just every citizen to go defend your country? Just No organization, no nothing. Just you do it however you think is necessary. Or is it going to be organized on a big level? You see what I mean? And standardized, operation standardized. Is it going to be on that level? So the military is a good way. But then again, the military doesn't directly affect you. And so today we're going to look at the things that directly affect us in the tax system. So in advance, now that I said that, in advance, right? Somebody said nice furniture. Oh yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right, even though I think it's just the light. You know what I'm saying? But thank you. Let me bring this up on the screen here. Boom. Where is it at? Okay, articles. Is it up here? There we go. Aha, here we go. So we're going to do some queries and just look into this and ask a few questions into ChatGPT. And I like to use ChatGPT because it comes with the references and it starts off with the how can I say this? The most accepted standard references. And then if you want to look further, right, you can add on to it. Like here, for example, it says something here about, I don't know if you can see this, the tax policy center. Yeah, you can see that, how the U.S. taxes compare, right? You see that's one reference that he uses. You can go back to, let's see here. Here's another one, Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, right? It lists all the references, and then later you can go and get individual printout, and link reference to everything. You see OECD, right? It goes there for data. Urban Institute, right? It goes here. These are state, and government institutions. European Commission, not all of them, but about 80, you could say 50% of the references are that or qualified by them, right? So here you go, European Commission. That's the EU. Oh, okay. OECD. Okay. That's international. OECD again. You see what I'm saying? So this is data that is driving, largely data that is submitted by states when we're going through this. Okay. So just for people to know, right? So let me get started. Here's a comparative overview of how tax revenue and government spending in the United States and the European Union, broadly OECD countries, are allocated towards key areas that directly impact average taxpayers: social protections, income security, healthcare, education, welfare, poverty reduction, and infrastructure, right? Infrastructure could be roads or whatever, right? All right, so let me see here. Can y'all see this? Let me see. Oh, here we go. All right, so let's get through this. Now, this is the United States. We're going to start here. Simple question. What percentage of taxes in the USA, right? EU, go to these areas of life that have direct impact on the average taxpayers, right? Social protection, income security, healthcare, health and financial protection, education, right? Welfare, poverty reduction, infrastructure. Okay. So let me see here. Let's go. We start off at the United States. How tax dollars are spent, approximate shares, right? Total of tax revenue. And this is we talking about on an individual basis. So listen, if you go get a job, this is what percentage of your hourly wage is going to be deducted before you get your payout, for people that don't know, right? And there's a lot of people from different countries around the world that may not know how the U.S. and the EU functions, right? When it comes to taxes, right? That's the great part about YouTube, by the way, is that you get people from all over that are using the internet now to get further insight into parts of the world that they may not otherwise have access to, right? Knowledge. So here we go. Total tax revenue. U.S. total tax revenue, federal plus state plus local, right? Because that could vary. Now, keep in mind, this data also varies by, especially when it comes to the U.S., by state, because some states are giver states. That means they generate more federal taxes, right, than they use. and therefore the excess goes to what are called user states, that they're the ones that get that excess. They generate less federal taxes than they use, or you could call them taker states, right? So there's that aspect to it also that you might want to apply, right? And then there's the state level, right? Some states generate, per person more money than other states. You see what I'm saying? So this also has some aspect on how you look at that, but we're going to get into that later, right? So here we go. U.S. total tax revenue, federal, state, plus local, is about 27% of GDP, right? That's interesting. Below OECD average, 34%. You see? Matter of fact, I'm going to, can I get this? Let me see. Copy link address. I'm going to put this in the chat also for people to take a look at if they want to. Here we are. Let me put this one in the chat. Boom. I think after this stream is done, I'm going to put this in a private. If you're interested, let me ask you a question. Put a 1 in the chat if you're actually interested in knowing about the difference between the U.S. tax system and the EU tax system overall, EU states. Put a 1 in the chat if you're interested. If you're not interested at all, put a 2 in the chat. Let me see that. That way you have something to do here. Now, did I put that link? I think I put the link here. There you go. You see that. So here we go. Now let's go on. Budget allocation, right? Federal level FY 2024 to 2025. So this is recent. Estimates according to Congressional Budget Office, CBO, and related federal spending breakdowns, right? What are those? All righty, let's see here. Social protection, income security, Social Security, plus other income support, 21% of federal spending. Now, this is the spending. Now, before we get to what's coming out of your check, right? Federal spending, right? 21%. Healthcare, 24%, right? That's healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, ACA subsidies, 24% of federal spending. Education is much smaller share, right, of federal level. Typical discretionary education spending, 3 to 4%, of total federal outlays, 12%. K-12 student aid and etc. Right? So let's see here. Welfare poverty reduction, SNAP, right? Food stamps for people that recognize that term. TANF, SSI, right? Unemployment, that's Social Security, right? So unemployment assistance is included within income security and means tested programs combined. This plus education is roughly 10 to 15% when considered across federal, state, and local, right? Okay. Infrastructure, transportation, water systems, broadband, internet. Okay. Yeah, because that's something that, the government had to also help, spawn in the U.S. The private companies don't just do that on their own, largely in the U.S. So you have that also that you pay into. People, corporations that later take over benefit from those investments that individual taxpayers make. Is part of the discretionary spending and government investment, but generally forms 5% or less of the total federal, state, local spending. Specific infrastructure investment is about 3.5 of GDP on average across OECD, EU countries, used as a proxy for advanced economies like the U.S. But the U.S. share may be similar or slightly lower than EU countries. Okay, so these percentages and shares of government spending, not direct percentages of tax revenue itself, but tax revenue funds these expenditures. The federal portion above includes state and local shares, which allocate larger shares to education, welfare, combining all levels, social protection, healthcare, and education absorb the largest portions of the government's budget, often exceeding half or total combined spending, right? So let's see here. Now, this is the European Union now, so it slightly differs, right? European Union, how taxes fund public services. The EU has a higher overall tax burden. So that means right off the top, for people that don't know what that means we pay, like, for example, if I lived in Washington, D.C., all the taxes I pay, I would be paying around roughly 33% when you combine all the taxes, to make it simple, because, you have different taxes, right? And then to figure out how much you really pay in taxes, you have to combine all the different taxes that you pay together to come out with a total sum. In Washington, D.C., and in some other major states across the country, big economies, right? Or major cities, the tax that I would pay would be 33%, right? Now, in Copenhagen, Denmark, I pay 39%, but I have some tax deductions because of my kids, right? But overall, the average person in my pay grade would be paying like 39 to 42%, right? Yeah, and it depends on some certain aspects of your life, right? Now, let's see here. Tax revenue magnitude, right? EU tax to GDP ratio, 40.4%. You see that? So that's the average. Different. Again, this varies across different EU countries. Some could be higher, some could be lower, but this is the average. Significantly higher in the U.S. Significantly higher than the U.S., right? So, yeah, because if you pay 33%, right, then this would be 6% more, right? So, isn't that right? 33%? No, 7%. I'm sorry. Government expenditure breakdown, EU average according to the Eurostat and OECD data. Government expenditure by function, social protection, income security, pension, unemployment, family, 39.3 of total government expenditure. Okay. That's on average. Again, that's not, it actually varies from country to country. Many countries are higher, many countries are lower, right? Healthcare, 15% of the total government expenditure on average, right? Okay. Education, 9 to 10% of total government expenditure on average. Okay. Infrastructure investment, public investment, which includes infrastructure, averages about 3 in Denmark. That could be for electricity capacity, electrical grids. That could be green energy projects, right? Denmark has most of its electrical lines buried underground. It has most across the world, maybe, right? That's in advance of storms, global weather pattern changes, so your electricity doesn't just go out because you're having a storm and a tree falls down, right? That the government helped spawn that. That's infrastructure, internet, certain things, right? Public investment, which includes infrastructure, averages 3.6 of the GDP across OECD EU countries, often funded from general taxes rather than the explicit line item. Okay. Welfare poverty reduction, EU social protections include many programs, unemployment benefits, disability, family support. This is captured under the 39% category above and represents direct social safety net spending. All right, so let me see, 2 seconds. Yeah, so that gives you an idea of the general breakdown, right? 39%, and 39% is significant, right? It's significant. What was that? I don't even know what the heck that was, but in any case, let's go on here. Now, can you all see this? Let me see. Let me make this a little bigger. Okay, I see you can't actually see this, so let me try to make sure I'm covering this well. Okay, part of this you may not see, right? So I'm going to have to break this down to you. But how can I do it if I can't cross over to it? Is it more? Okay, I got it now. So I'm going to read part of it, and then hopefully you will be able to see it. Or can I make it smaller? I'm going to leave it like this, and then I will try to oh, I know what I'll do. I'm going to do it like this. Here we go, this part. And then hopefully you all can I can share the screen with you after. Okay. Summary comparisons, right? So this is the summary breakdown. So now that we've seen what the, as a matter of fact, let me just do this right now so everybody can see as much as they can. And of course, you can actually do this breakdown yourself, and you should. Again, don't rely on my data, right? And be invested enough to, do this data ask many different questions, make different queries, right? Go into it and, ask so you get a well-rounded answer, because depending on how you ask the questions, you might get, the answer might vary depending on the particularities. Here you can see I chose healthcare, education, poverty, social protection, certain aspects of life. Right. Although it's broader, the areas I chose are broader, a little bit broader than this because it has infrastructure too. And this, so you can do the same. Right. But here, let's see here. Social protection. All right. So the category United States is one. And then to the right. Oh, you can't see that. Hold on. Here we go. Boom. And to the right is the EU. All right. So social protection, income security, 21% for the U.S. Right. Federal plus larger state local shares, right? You see, so it could vary there depending on state to state, right? You see, some states contribute more, you see, to the sector of life. That's up to you and, the people you elect, right? And and then in the EU, it's 39%, again, up to the people you elect. This is all elected. This isn't forced. This is all democracy. This is what's volunteered by the people. This is what's negotiated by the voter and their representatives. That's how that works in democracies. Otherwise, what are you voting for? The European Union is 39% of social protection and income security, right? And here, let me take this out here, and then I'm going to copy that link, put that in the chat, and then you can take a look at that also for your own reference here. Let me see. Is it coming up? Boom. Where we at here? Oh, here's the chat over here. Here we go. So let me put that in the chat. Boom, y'all. So you guys can go and check that source out. Here we go. So let's get back over here now. Healthcare, 24%, right? But look here. You will see European Union. It's 15.5%. Now, this is going to come up later in some data. And this is an area that really should be explored because one might off the top, this is just what comes to my mind off the top, right? How is it that people in the EU can have universal health care? That means if you get sick, you go to the doctor, it's pretty much free or extremely cheap. Like, for example, for countries that don't go along exactly with the program, maybe Sweden, for example, your hospital stay is not free, but you know how much it costs you? $10 a night. Yeah. Yeah. So that's Sweden. I don't know how much it costs in the U.S. a night at the hospital, but there you have it, and that's what it costs for everybody. You see what I'm saying? Now, let me see here. 15.5%. Doctor is free. Doctors and stuff like that is included. But 15.5%, then everyone is covered for 15.5%. U.S. federal is 24%, and everybody's not even covered. That a question mark should pop in your head right there. Education. Now, see, the numbers start looking a little bit more. You could understand the other numbers, right? Education, 3.4%, right? That's for the U.S. Education in the European Union is double that, over double that, 9 to 10% of total expenditure. Why? Because Europe has universal education. That means if you just pass the entry exam, you go to the school. You get in the class. And if you don't get in this class, you get in the one that starts 3 months later. Bingo. It doesn't matter what class it is. You just got to pass the entry exam. If you qualify and you pass that little test, boom, it's paid for. You see what I mean? And in most countries, you get a salary. You get you get money that you don't end up paying back. You could take a further loan and borrow more money if you want. If that's your choice, you have the freedom to do that. You have an option that exists to do that. But if you don't, you just take the baseline expenditure, maybe get a job, maybe on the side. And there you have it. Boom. And not that you have to get a job. It's your choice. You see what I mean? Now, you might think, okay, damn, that's interesting. It makes sense. 9 to 10%. Everybody gets that. Okay. But look, welfare poverty reduction. 10, you can understand this too, because European nations are known to have more social programs, right? Social investment. You see what I mean? In families. This is where I say, get back to the proud patriot thing. Proud to be an American. What does that mean? What is the patriotism about? What does being a patriot mean? Does it mean caring about someone else besides yourself? I mean, or how far does it extend? Does it extend to I'm proud American and I care about other people when I go to war only? That's the only way my sacrifice should be done. It should not be in any other way. Only when I sign up for the military, or should it be, I'm also contributing to the overall community, because all families may not have it as good as I have it, or others may have different situations. You know what I mean? Hence, okay, I want to make sure that kid over there gets at least, even though it's not my kid, gets a fair shot too. You see what I mean? Is that patriotism? You tell me. Is patriotism another American, waking up in the morning, being able to, have a roof over their head when they go to work, just like I do? I don't know. That's a values question about patriotism. So I would argue Europeans are more fucking proud. I would argue that right here with this 10 to 15%, 39%. I would argue Europeans are more patriotic. I would argue a French man is a little more French, proud to be French, than an American citizen. I would argue that. Same for German. I would argue that. Same for Dane. I would argue that. Same for a lot of Swedes, Norwegians, a whole goddamn list of people. I would argue that. Although there's a lot of people that might take offense to me saying that. But it's my opinion. I have the right to my opinion. You don't have to research this and you don't have to agree. Right. But I would say, just based on what I always thought growing up, based on what others had told me, right, what being proud was, how, what makes people, what makes society tick and talk is that, we care more. We don't just care only about ourselves. We care about the common good. Right. Civilization, society. Right. That's a collective thing. It's a collective experience. Infrastructure, 5%. That's the U.S. 5%. That's the infrastructure. Let's think about buried wire. Let's think about green energy. Let's think about new electrical grids. Because isn't that the reason why they tell you your prices on electricity are just off the roof? Don't they tell you it's the electrical grid? How many years they got to tell you it's the goddamn electrical grid? How many years before there's some goddamn government investment in it? But, it's a scam. Apparently, there's somebody that doesn't want that grid taken care of in a lot of places. Somebody doesn't want that infrastructure rollout, I would argue. And even when it's only 5%, there's somebody that say, fuck that. I don't even want you paid the 5%, or we're supposed to put out 5%, but we don't even want that 5% to go out. Fuck that. We don't want new grids. We want you to wait, because the political party that wanted new grids, we're against them. And although that makes sense, we can't support nothing they do anyway, period, because we're partisan. That's how we're going to do our politics. But in the EU, it's 3.5%. Do you want your electricity? Do you think people, when they wake up, deserve to have their electricity on in a storm? That might be a good thing. Let me look at the chat for a second. Yeah. Click like, please. Click like. Purple Groovy, what's up? Darina, hey, how you doing? Oh my good. Yeah. Look at this plant. Okay, well, let me do this. Here we go. I don't understand Plant's comment. He sounds like something weird. He says, yeah, everything is the white boogeyman's fault. Okay, weird. I haven't mentioned anything about anybody white. So let me put that person in timeout for 24 hours. That just seems like somebody who is having a different conversation that came into my chat and wrote a message that's intended for another podcaster, you know. Look, the exact reason why those countries view the U.S. as a third world country. Yeah, as a third world. I think that's leaning in the correct category, Dennis. I think you might be right, Dennis Nielsen. DK, what's up? Vordengordi, good morning to the. Yeah, I mean, I don't see an issue with that. I'm American. I live in Denmark. I can see why. I can definitely see why. Okay, even the natural gas heating prices are getting ridiculous in California. Exactly. Like infrastructure could matter. Infrastructure matters. That should be the next, because it's getting that deep. You know what I'm saying? Like, they trying to cut any goddamn. Yeah, good morning for Denmark. Yo. Det er rigtig nok. Good morning, Denmark. Good morning, Denmark. Yeah, and yes. We have it good here. And, although we have complaints, every democracy has complaints, but hey, let's get the standards, the norm, the base norm is wonderful, right? Free, a lot of freedom, I would say. People are very free in Denmark. But yo, this is too much. Let's go back to the data now. Now, key takeaways here. We haven't even started because it's about to get really fun, right? I know this isn't a topic for everybody. People want to follow the legacy news stories, and I get that, the big stories. But to me, in my mind, this should be when it comes to voting. And again, you got to think about your podcasting. Think a year ahead. Think about the information you want people to vote on in 2026. Think about that now and talk about that now. What are those issues now? You see what I mean? And I think as a podcaster, I realized that I was one of the podcasters that realized, no, actually, this needs to be a conversation that we're having, not just talking points. People need to know the data and walk around with the data in their head, especially when they're a taxpayer. Like, you need to know how much you pay. What is your vote worth? What is your sweat and tears worth? What is your blood worth? This is what people need to know, right? So that's what I would think. But key takeaways. EU governments dedicate a larger share of taxes to social protections and public services, reflecting a higher tax and GDP ratio. U.S. spending is more concentrated in healthcare and income security at a federal level, with the education and infrastructure relying more on state local budgets. You see that? Education and infrastructure relying on state. Okay. Infrastructure typically receives a smaller slice of compared with social services. So that's interesting. Infrastructure. I think that's weird. I think it should be concerning. But here's the part here's one thing that I think is going to jump out later for a lot of people. Here, it looks like the U.S. spends more on healthcare, right? And you would think that's a good thing, right? You would think like, yeah, that means we care about people. No, that means somewhere in there, somebody's getting a whole lot of that money that is not providing shit to anybody. What the fuck? This 24%? What the hell? This right here, if this issue is not taken seriously, right? And it's not, especially by the Republicans. They're not taking it seriously because this could be an easy way for them to provide a damn healthcare program and be opposition to Democrats if they want to be. But they not. They ain't even trying to touch. They don't even want you to know how much you pay. They don't want you to know. They have points like, no, work for yourself, do it yourself. Do it yourself? No. First of all, a union, which is what healthcare, insurance companies are, unions, right? You know how bizarre this is? People could be paying into this shit and never get access to it on both sides, the federal tax side and the private side, the money that they pay out of their pocket, the premiums. The moment, check this out, you're paying this in taxes and then don't even get access to it in the U.S. Can you fucking believe this? Facts. And they're not saying reduce the tax burden on the average person. They can't afford it. No, they're not saying that either. That's not what they're running on. They're running on, hey, just cut more and have them pay the same. Have them pay us the same, cut more, and watch the private side get more expensive. Oh, fuck. That's great help. Thank you, federal government. Thank you, Republicans, for offering that. That's a nice thing to do if you hate people. And maybe hating people is the patriotic way. I don't know. Maybe that's somebody's form of patriot. That's Charlie Kirk shit. That makes sense. Just hate on the women, hate on the blacks, hate on you know what I'm saying? Hate on anybody. Just, that's pride. It's a trick of the mind. It shows you kind of like that is like, you would think a person is really ignorant that falls for that type of stuff. Like, I get to give you a little bit of hate for free to get your mind off of your taxes. Exactly. So I can rob you over here. So I can rob you in the tax area, rob you in the private industry, and all I have to do is say nigga and spick and chink, and you'll go for it. Or fag, and you're like, oh, you all in. Head in first. I don't want to hear nothing about nothing else. You got me sold. I'll vote for you. Pride. Okay. Notes on interpreting the numbers. Okay, that's worth noting. But these figures, right, are approximate and aggregate. Okay. So if you want to disaggregate them, that's the detail. Break them into, find numbers. What exactly is under those big numbers, broad numbers, right? That total percentage, you need to break it down. So for yourself, okay? Social protection, right? EU data includes pension, unemployment, insurance, family support, disability, etc., capturing broad welfare. Yeah, elder care, right? It encompasses a lot. So that also, and think about that, but yet they pay less. Get more, pay less. This is going to come up in the data again. This is going to come up in the data again. So there you have it. Now let me change the screen back to normal here, and then we can get to looking into the rest of this. Let me see. I got to make this a little bigger. Boom. Here we go. Boom. Okay, so you guys can see this now. So let's go. Is it like that? Yeah, let's go. 2 seconds. All right, so here's now the next question I'm going to ask is, why do Americans in taxes pay more into healthcare, right, than the EU, right? Why does the U.S. spend more on healthcare regarding taxes? I mean, healthcare, I'm saying, in taxes, right? But cover less people. But cover less people, right? And again, this is something for 2026, but this is something every day for your life, because this is what you're going through right now. You're burning a hole and nobody's fixing it, sadly enough. And I'm not dissing Democrats, because obviously they at least know enough to know that you can't, you shouldn't, if you don't want to to work on healthcare on the congressional level and pass new laws, right? On spending, on who is supposed to cover, rules, regulations, all this type of shit. If you're not willing to do that, the very least you could do is make sure people can access it and don't cut the damn tax expenditures that go to it. Don't cut that so the healthcare gets more expensive for them, that their deductibles and their copays and the payouts get more expensive so they can't even afford it at all. You see what I mean? The least you could do is not cut that, right? But the Republicans wanted to cut that. And what is the price of that? Oh, well, it's going to triple and double. Now, keep in mind, Hakeem Jeffries made an announcement. I think I'm going to speak about this, right? Let me go to that Hakeem Jeffries thing in a second, because he believes that it's going to pass. He believes it's going to pass in the midnight hours, and maybe that's the case. So has it passed yet? I don't think so. But as of yesterday, there's some private congressional members, even though Mike Johnson sent all the Republicans home again, just like he did over the Epstein file discharge. And again, we're talking about a discharge petition. They believe that this is going to go in, the back door again, right, for the healthcare thing. So let's see here. Because the U.S. healthcare system is structurally different and far less efficient, right? U.S. tax dollars end up paying more while covering fewer people. The short version: the U.S. subsidizes a market system. Market system meaning, hey, you just make up your price and say, hey, fuck it, this is how much it costs. One person could say, hey, a heart transplant could cost $2. The next can say it costs $1 billion. You decide what works. One person says, hey, these Q-tips are going to cost 0.1 cent, 1% per piece, and the other could say it costs $1,000 per piece. Hey, if you get that government contract, you get in there, you get to sell it for that price. Sounds like a lot of corruption. Yes. So people need to be aware of that. Who's getting that corrupt money? Who gets that bid on that contract? And I'm talking about on the federal level and the state level, like both. Like don't let one like point the finger at the other. Yeah, that's them on the federal side, or yeah, that's them on the state side. No, all sides. Who's getting some of that, right? But also look at this. I mean, the federal government. God damn, there should be a lot of room to point the finger at the federal government. I'm just saying, right? There's a lot of that money going there. Federal dollars going there. So that tells me where some corruption might be. Okay. U.S. tax dollars end up paying more while covering few people. The short version: the U.S. subsidizes a market system while the EU runs public systems. Okay. Here's a clearer breakdown. The U.S. pays for prices, not people. Isn't that fucking amazing? You could be paying a big chunk of your tax dollars could be going into paying healthcare, and it ain't even paying healthcare. Like, what the fuck? That's weird. You paying for prices, not people. Wow. Let me make this chart bigger again, because this is interesting. Yeah. I didn't actually see this part before, but hey, you learn something every day when you do a little bit of when you just look. And again, I'm just looking this shit up right now, y'all. So don't be mad at me for what the outcome is. Be mad at yourself for not looking it up, because you could have had the same result and been having the same conversation. The U.S. pays dramatically more for the same services. MIR scan. Speaking of MIR, how'd that go, Trump? 1,000 to 2,000. That hey man, it must be better if you pay more for it, right? EU average cost $150 to $400. I mean, you could. It sounds to me almost like, wow. Okay, hospital day. What does it cost in the U.S.? $2,800 for a day on average. What is it? This is what you're paying. This is what your healthcare providers decide they have to pay. You have to pay. This is what the federal government and the private industry have decided each American has to pay in order to be admitted into the hospital. $2,800 fucking dollars a day. Let me just look at the chat. I don't know how many people are interested about this. You know, it's like, let me just take a look at the chat really. Cause, to me, this sounds goddamn bizarre. This sounds very, very bizarre right here. I don't know about those numbers. Let me see here. Yeah, Esther Blue, Ether Blue. I'm sorry. What's up? Here we go. That's why the medical tourism is on the rise. Oh, hell yeah, shit. How about medical just get the fuck out of Dodge and beat it and don't come back? Because I mean, why would you go back for that? Like, what the fuck? You can get sick any day of the week. God damn. Like, yo, this is crazy. This is crazy. This is insane. This price is, let me just go back to it. All right, here we go. Let's take a look. I'm going to open this back up again. Look at this. This is ridiculous. Hospital, 1 day at the hospital, $2,800 in the U.S. In the EU, it's $400 to $900. It's 1/3. It's not even 1/3. It's 1/6. It's like a sixth of what it would cost, right? Yeah, something like that. A fifth. Insulin monthly. Look at this. $300 to $600 just for fucking insulin for a month. And in the EU, it's $30 to $70. This is what Americans are paying. And look, you're paying into this shit, whether you like it or not, even if you can't even get the insulin. Part of your taxes is paying into this bullshit. Sounds to me like sharecropping. No, it sounds to me like slavery. Like, this is what it's sounding to me. Like, this is not sharecropping, because at least you got the insulin. This is like, no. See, it's not like you getting all of these things and then, you know, you can never really get ahead, but you maintaining, you know, getting all these things and only being allowed to maintain. That's sharecropping. You know, some will argue that, of course, maybe it was worse than that, but this is more akin to slavery, because you will, not only can you not get ahead and just stay afloat, not only can you not get ahead, not only can you not stay afloat, you're going to sink with these prices. You're going to be like, while you headed to work, your hole is going to keep showing up on your shirt and your pants and shit. And your employees are going to be like, okay, get to work. Hole in your shoe. I don't see that. Get to work. Get to work, boy. You know, this is crazy. This is crazy. Specialist visit, $300 to $600 in the U.S., $80 to $200 in the EU. And look, this is a lot of the EU is still privatized. Like, there's private services mixed up into this too. Now, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. In fact, you need to understand that there definitely is. So when you're seeing these costs in the EU, you're still seeing a certain level of privatization involved. Now, don't sleep. Understand that. Understand that. Yes, you are. You are. That's why you can't call the EU states socialist nations. No, they have certain projects, big projects that are handled publicly, that is more public, basically. You know, how can I say this? The way that it's handled is collective bargaining. In other words, this is where the public gets involved. The public says, you get to provide your services here, but you have to do it within this realm of cost. And the companies say, you know what? Let's see what we can do. And if we can actually come up with a plan that does that effectively. And then different, you know, people come up with the different data and they say here. And the people say, yeah, we think that's cool. That's what's going on. You see what I mean? Now, in the U.S., I don't know what the hell is going on. You know, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. And I can't say. But in any case, All right, here we go. So now that we went through that. So when the U.S. government spends tax dollars on healthcare, those dollars are absorbed by higher prices, not expanded coverage. Okay, result, more money spent for patients, fewer patients covered. Very simple. See, in the EU, a doctor can have a summer home. He can have 2 houses. He can have 3 houses. He can have a summer home on one part of, on a lake in one place. He can have another one on the beach, on the ocean, and another, and have his home in whatever city or whatever town he lives in. He can have 3 cars, a car in each one. Hey, he can have a whole lot of shit. He can get divorced, pay half his salary and shit, and then get married again and have another family, right? Or she. But in the U.S., these people don't want that. No, these motherfuckers want an airplane each per doctor. That's what they fucking want. or at least, if not an airplane per doctor, they want 100 airplanes for the CEO. Like, what the fuck? That's what's going on. That's what's going on. You got to understand that. The U.S., and I know this, I'm telling you, because I've actually had a doctor. I did an interview here. I don't know if y'all noticed. I did one of my first documentaries, which was done back when Al Gore had his company. This is years ago, 2006, 2007, right? He had his media company, Al Gore. I did a documentary on the Danish healthcare system. So I actually interviewed some doctors and some well-known ones, the head doctors. I'm not talking about just, underlings, I'm talking about heads of departments. And and so I found out a lot about the healthcare system then in Denmark. And he gave me a good, I got some good, well-rounded information, because some of the data is complex, but for the everyday person, what do you want to know what it's like? What does that mean to you? Well, what it should mean to you is that a doctor in Denmark it gets paid very, very well, enough to have 2-3 different homes if they want. You see what I mean? Very, very well. But in the U.S., somebody wants a goddamn airplane. That's what's going on. Somebody is like really wants you paying for 100 more of their kids. It's for their kids for infinity and shit, just do something that's supposed to be called a union. A union is supposed to bring down costs. You see, so there's something there for people to look into. The U.S. system fragmented. EU systems are unified. Okay, so you get that. So the U.S. system is fragmented, right? EU systems are unified, right? So United States healthcare tax fund multiple overlapping programs. Medicare, right? This is the U.S. Medicare, 65 plus, Medicaid, low income, VA veterans, ACA subsidies, employer-based insurance tax breaks, emergency care for uninsured. Each has separate billing systems. I wonder why that is. Yeah, interesting. Damn. Okay. Administration overhead, 25 to 30% of the total healthcare spending. Sounds like, it doesn't sound like this is a motherfucking waste. This is your culprit right here, pretty much. It's not the only culprit, but this is a huge number. 20 to 35% overhead cost. Your healthcare system has 3 separate billing systems. Why? European Union, EU countries run single payer, right? From the UK to Denmark, even though it includes the UK, this data, even though the UK is not part of the EU really anymore. Universal multiple payer with price controls, Germany. You see? So universal, one payer, right? Multi-payer with price controls. Okay, so that's different. Multi-payer, but tax controls, price controls. That means it's regulated how much again. So this is also part of the collective bargaining I was talking about, right? So administrative overhead in the EU, 5 to 8%. Wow, they're much more efficient. That sounds like a lot of time and energy could go into investing into other things, technology, different stuff. You know what I mean? Everyone doesn't have to learn how to sit behind a desk and be like, let me see. Let me count this paycheck. Let me count this tax. Let me count this bill. Like, hello? Goddamn, how many accountants you gonna have? How many administrators? Hello, pick up the phone, la la la. Like how many of those people you gonna have? Well, hold on, sir. Let me check this out. I mean, that's great when you need them, but what is it doing effectively for anybody? You see what I mean? You see what I mean? This, I don't know, man. This is, I'm not saying that's the only what it goes to, but administrative overhead. That's what it says. This is just to administrate 5 to 8%, US 25 to 30%. Like, this is just administrating it. Like, okay. In any case, EU taxes subsidize private insurance profits. Woo. A critical difference most people miss. In the U.S., taxpayer money pays private insurers to administer Medicare Advantage, subsidizes employer insurance via tax exclusions. Damn. So let me say that again. Subsidizes employer insurance via tax exclusions. I'm having trouble with that word. Exclusions, right? Covers unpaid hospital bills, cost shifting, bails out hospitals serving uninsured patients, right? That's what's going, you see, that's in the U.S. So this sounds good on the surface, right? Private insurers take profits, pay executives down. Okay, now this is different. Private insurers take profits. Okay. Okay, how much is that profit? Okay, pay executives, right? Private insurers pay executives, spend heavily on marketing and lobbying. And you ain't getting shit for this marketing and lobbying. Let me tell you, this is what's going on in the U.S. for healthcare, and which is i.e. healthcare, the big part of your federal dollar check, which you pay out of your, every hour that you go to work, a big part of that goes to this waste, like a big part. And if you listen to the Trumpian double tongue, he will tell you this kind of like, he will say, yeah, just give them their money. Let them pay. Let them just do it all over. Yeah, but government's role is to provide another way to do it better, right? In a more efficient way, a collective way. That's the government's role. Big projects. Healthcare is big project land. That's something everyone fucking needs. That's not something somebody needs. Okay? So, again, the government is supposed to do their job. So this is congressional inaction. This is Senate inaction, right? And this also, I would say to some degree, I don't know what the hell is up with the Supreme Court, but goddamn, but in any case, so in the EU, insurance, if present, is non-profit or tightly regulated. No shareholder profit extraction. No marketing wars. Okay? U.S. tax leak into profit. EU taxes don't. This is largely, okay? Because like I said, there's still some privatization going on in the EU in different parts of the healthcare system, right? But the collective bargaining, eliminates most of this corruption. You see what I'm saying? For example, this thing right here. Tax profits, paid executives, spending heavily on marketing and lobbying. Collective bargaining eliminates a lot of that from the jump, you see, in the EU. So the U.S. covers sickness, most expensive patients only. Damn. That's deep, yo. What the fuck? And you paying into this shit? This is what you pay into the U.S. Some shit that don't even claim to cover you. That's bullshit. U.S. public health care programs mainly cover elderly, Medicare. Sounds good, but they only the most expensive. Only the richest elderly. This is what you pay for in your taxes. Disabled, right? Only the rich disabled, right? Very poor, only the rich very poor. Veterans, only the, but you get my point. These groups use far more health care, have higher chronic disease rates, require long-term expensive treatment. EU systems cover everyone, including young, healthy, working adults. Hey, can you believe that, your employee is going to get back to work quickly because they actually get health care? Can you believe that? Can you believe that they have less of a chance of contaminating the workplace because they get to go see a doctor when they feel something's not right? Can you believe that? Can you believe they're going to get on the bus and likely do less contaminating? Can you believe that? Can you believe it? Can you believe they're collecting comprehensive data so they can, even if you feel okay, they can still monitor overall progress, overall health? Can you believe that's what's going on? Because the more doctor visits you have, obviously they're going to give you a test. They're going to take notes. They're going to report that data back to, the state. The state is going to look at it and say, hey, wait a second, we noticing some trends here. Less people go to the doctor, have a doctor's visits, less data being collected. Did you know that? Don't get upset by how I'm saying it, right? Because I know some people don't like how I speak, right, about these things, particularly what's being said in my tone, because my tone can sound a little condescending, but take it as like, yeah, because we've had to say this shit a million times and people still don't get it through their thick goddamn heads. Don't take the responsibility to do something about this. Take the time to have the conversation like their life depends on it. Sometimes that's just what it is. You ain't going to like how the tone somebody says it in it. Does that stop you? Didn't stop me. EU spreads risk across the whole population. U.S. concentrates spending on the costliest cases. Okay, so let's see here. EU spreads risk across the whole population. U.S. concentrates spending on the costliest cases. So in other words, you're getting help before it gets too bad in the EU. You see what I mean? Before it gets out of control and on and on and on. You see what I mean? That's what that means. The EU is doing more preventative, helping your health along the way. The U.S., what you're paying for is getting involved too late. Basically, chronic shit. Just it's over for you. You've been unhealthy for a long time and now it's permanent type of thing. Yeah. But we talk about taxes, because if I want to pay taxes for healthcare, I want the doctor to say, hey, whoa, way early and say, hey, did you notice this though? I got to tell you this. Well, by the way, you might want to think about doing this, and this. Come back in a couple of months. Let's take another test and see how that worked out. Yeah. You probably going to live longer and be happier if you make this adjustment. I mean, a doctor, though, not a person just guessing, not a friend, an actual doctor that's going to take an actual blood test, going to measure different things in your blood, going to search for different things in your blood, search for 1,000 different things, search for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 different things. It might help. I go to the doctor, the first thing they do is a blood test. You know what I'm saying? I want to know. They want to know the general things, and then they want to know anything else that might be on in a trend right now. Is it this? Okay, well, this is what we've been experiencing. Well, how does your blood add up to these, new recent issues that we're having in the population? Sickness or whatever. COVID, even though it's not even called COVID anymore. You know what I'm saying? Any type of sickness that could be going around, right? No national price controls. Okay, in the U.S., no national price controlling. So this is a big area for corruption. EU governments negotiate drug prices. You've heard Bernie Sanders say it a million times, but a lot of you need to get knocked upside the head with this, And I would suggest the people that do know about this stuff, start knocking these other people upside the head with these facts that don't know it, because, goddamn, you're holding back everybody. You're holding back patriotism. You're holding back American pride. Okay? You're holding every fucking body back. You can't be proud of that. Okay? Set hospital reimbursement rates. Okay? The EU sets that. Okay? Hospital reimbursement rates. They're setting the cost. You see what I mean? So it's standardized. You don't just get to make it up as you go along. Oh, well, fuck it, man. We need $1 million this month. Fuck it. Let's make it up in hospital stays. You know what I'm saying? Let's do that. Fuck it. Just bring the cost of that up. That'll do it. Cap physician fees. Does your physician need 3 Lamborghinis or does he need 1? and a Benz, family car Benz, and then another car on the side, little, throwaway car on the side. Can he work with those three little cars, one Lamborghini, one family Benz, and a throwaway car on the side, or does he have to have the jet? You tell me. You tell me what your physician needs. And tell your congressional member and your senator and your president and the Supreme Court the same thing. You might need to tell the Supreme Court today because they don't know up from down anyway. The U.S. allows hospitals and drug companies to set prices. Yeah, why not? If I could set the price, I would. How much would I charge you? How much would you charge me? If I could set the price for every view on YouTube, I wonder what I would charge. Would I charge a 1,000 a view? Damn, that would help. I would like that. Can I do that? Or do I have to do 0.1 cent, 0.0 per view? Which one would you rather have? They set the prices for me. I'm like, okay, got to go along with the program. But I would love to set those prices for me, although I don't get to. Let the same drug cost 3 to 10% more. What the fuck? Exactly. They let the same drug cost be 3 to 10% more just because it's on you, taxpayer. That's what you can do with your Medicaid. See, a lot of people I think a lot of Americans think when they're voting, they think when somebody explains this to them that because they don't have health care, they ain't paying for this. No, motherfucker, you are, even without health care, paying for this. Do you know that? Yep. Joke's on you. So again, you may not care about anybody else. Okay. But to some extent, a person could ask, do you even care about yourself? Because you paying this shit too. Prohibits Medicare from negotiating many drug prices. Okay. Yeah. So there you have it. You can't negotiate in the U.S. It's kind of like being a slave. No negotiation. Just get out there and do it. U.S. taxpayers pay whatever the market demands, whatever massa demands. That's how I translate that. Okay. It could be broad. It could be market or massa. Either one, So employee-based health insurance is the hidden tax efficiency. Okay. Wow. Employer-based insurance is the hidden tax insufficiency. In the U.S., employer insurance premiums are not taxed. This costs the government hundreds of billions in lost revenue, yet still leaves millions uninsured or underinsured. Okay. In the EU, healthcare is funded directly through taxes, no dependency on employer status, right? The U.S. spends more and collects less. So this is the comparative. And the question was, just for people coming into the stream, right? The question was, why does the U.S. why is the taxes, why is the money you pay for health insurance way more and covers less people than the EU? So the EU's cost less, damn near half, but covers everybody. The U.S. costs damn near double for the taxpayer, right? And covers less people. So it costs double, but pays less, but covers less. How's that possible? Okay. Emergency care for uninsured is the most expensive care. U.S. law requires hospitals to treat emergencies regardless of insurance. That means people delay care, conditions worsen. Hospitals provide the most expensive possible treatment. Taxpayers later cover unpaid bills. Okay. But guess what? The EU does this. Okay. EU systems provide early care, prevent emergencies, save money long term. So look, in the EU, if you drop out on the street or wherever you are, ambulance comes and picks you up for free, pretty much. But it's happening less. So per person in the population, the percentage wise, it's happening less. Less people are requiring emergency treatment because EU systems provide early care. That means earlier care to a doctor, to prevent serious illnesses in the first place. Preventing emergencies, right? Save money long term. That's how it's working. Bottom line, plain English. Yeah. But it ain't going to be good enough for some Americans, because some Americans don't even speak plain English or read it, right? They only hear bullshit, bigotry when they want to hear it, when they want to listen. Now I understand that word. The U.S. doesn't pay more to cover more people. It pays more because prices are higher, administration is bloated, profits are extracted, care is delayed until it's expensive, risk is poorly distributed. Meanwhile, EU pays less per person because healthcare is treated as infrastructure, not a commodity. One sentence summary: the U.S. spends more tax money on healthcare because it subsidizes a fragmented profit-driven system with no price controls, while the EU uses taxes to directly provide care to everyone at a lower cost. If you want, I can show per taxpayer cost comparisons. Break this down for Denmark versus U.S. Turn this into a visual chart or explainer for your YouTube audience. Yes, that was nice. Now let me look at the chat and see what's going on here. Now I think that this right here for the listeners, people that come in later and hear the stream. Right now, I can see it's like maybe 100 and something people watching the live. So most of the people, I don't know, it could be like maybe 10,000 people to come to hear this video right later. Listen, there's more to come about this, these comparisons, right? I can continue with this because there's some other areas, but I think right now this is good because we can leave it in focus on healthcare, because that's one of the elements that's really, has a lot to do with the taxes that every American pays, but there's issues and lies about the systems, the overall conversation about, what the EU is. The EU is they're not socialist countries, for one. So you need to tell your politicians to stop calling it socialist. They're capitalist countries that have social programs. You see? So open market, but it's managed differently. You see what I mean? Certain sectors are managed by the public, but they're still buying products, right? For it's an open market. They just collectively buy. So collective means they're not charging you individually for each thing. They're buying the shit for everybody. A big bulk. If you want to just I'm not saying it means that exactly, but just to give you an idea of what it means, right? Looking to cover everybody, therefore buying more in the beginning at a lower cost, saving money. U.S. is like, even though they know they got 350 million people that need health care, they're charging people individually. That's crazy. You see what I'm saying? So now again, if you're thinking this is not a topic for Republicans and Democrats and independents, I'm sorry. That doesn't make any sense, because this is a big chunk of your tax dollars. Why wouldn't that be a conversation for you? This is the biggest area. Again, let's go back. This is in terms of social shit, taxes, the taxes that go into social things and that go into this, that every person pays. If you pay taxes, the taxes that go into healthcare, taxes. We're not even talking about your deductibles or your pay-cos or any of that shit, or the cost afterwards. Look, the cost that you pay out of your pocket, none of that. This is what you're paying up front. We're talking about healthcare is expensive. So we looked at here the social things: healthcare, financial protection, health and financial protection, education, welfare, poverty reduction, infrastructure. And look, the bottom line was where the huge discrepancy was where the healthcare was so far. Now, those sectors, here we go. You see, the huge discrepancy was in the healthcare right here, 21% versus the EU. I mean, oh my God, this was crazy. Let me see here. Let me bring this back up. 20. Yeah, 21%. Let me make this smaller here so y'all can see this, just to wrap this part up. This is a huge difference. Here we go. 24% versus the EU 15%. The EU is covering everybody. The US isn't. But paying more of your taxes to it. This should be concerning for everybody. See? Now look, let's look at the other areas. You see? There's a conversation to have everywhere here. But goddamn, how do you explain the healthcare? See, you might be able to say, well, we don't want to invest in welfare. You might be able to say that. Okay, fine. You got your 10 to 15%. You might want to make it cheaper. Maybe there's an argument for you there. Okay, if you don't like how the EU does it, right? But where's your argument for healthcare, for paying more for healthcare and getting less? Where's your argument for that? Why don't you start there? You see what I'm saying? And unless you're happy paying more for your I'm talking about your taxes. Because look, let's just say you get rid of this 24%. How much would that reduce your taxes? What if you don't cover nobody's health care? How much would that reduce your taxes? You see what I mean? Of course, would it bring the cost of health care down just by eliminating, any health care in the tax system at all? Would it bring the cost of those things down, or would it make them more expensive? It would obviously make them more expensive, right? But if you're going to have any type of collective thing in it, then it may as well be closer. It may as well get rid of the corruption. Right now, it doesn't. It doesn't. So I don't see what anyone's argument there. Now, the next stream, when I open it up, right, and I'm going to create another stream here. I'm talking about the next time I discuss this topic, because now I'm just going to cover the general news. But on this stream, I'm going to cover the general news now. But the next time I cover this topic, I'm going to look at what Trump calls the trade deficit, right? Because I know people don't really like getting too much information at one time. Some viewers are more irritated by that than others. You see what I mean? So I'm aware of that, too, because I'm a streamer. You know what I mean? I want to keep people engaged as long as possible. That's not always possible with, when you're discussing data, right? But in any case, that's what I'm going to do. So the next stream is going to be about the trade deficit. What Trump says is the trade deficit, when there really isn't no goddamn trade deficit. It's a lie. He's manipulating. The truth of the matter is that the U.S. benefits, when you're talking about the private sector, right? There's a deficit. But when you're talking about what they're buying from the U.S. government, right, which goes into the GDP and all of that stuff, a lot of countries are buying our weapons. You see what I mean? And so, and those are private industries that are making private companies that are making, you see? Yeah. They're private American companies that are making the weapons and selling them to the EU. See, that's where the U.S. is catching up on that. That's where that deficit doesn't know, it balances out then. But that's not what Trump wants to tell you. So Trump's lying to you. You see, because he's not really talking about private industry, U.S. industry. He now tries to segregate parts of it and then use that as a way to describe what's going on. No, basically what it means is we buy luxury cars. They buy luxury bombs, and the luxury bombs and the luxury tanks and the luxury airplanes they're buying outweighs that deficit that Trump claims we have from buying their luxury cars, just to simplify it for people. So let me go over to the chat before we change up here. I hope everybody enjoyed that presentation. I hope people got something out of it. You see what I'm saying? I hope it was useful. Maybe if you want to share the video, you could get more people involved in that conversation. That's if you think it's concerning to you. I don't see why it wouldn't concern anybody. Obviously, I know I've said that a million times, but I think it should be most concerning since I've already displayed that's a big chunk of your tax dollars. Especially to the people that don't believe in collective anything should be concerned about that. Now, the people that want collective bargaining, you should also be concerned about that. You know what I'm saying? But, even the MAGA bitches out there should be concerned about that. Punk asses, that vote for pedophiles and shit, and billionaires. They should be concerned about that. But, this is for them. They just have talking points. They don't really mean what they say when they talk about taxes, fair trade, pull your pants up by yourself. They don't mean that. What they really mean is I'm on welfare, but I don't want you to get any. Right? That's really the double talk of the MAGA people and shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm on welfare, but you shouldn't get none. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, that's right. The MAGA suicide plan. I'm going to vote for the man that's going to withhold the federal dollars for our disaster relief. So my mama had to pay 5 times more to repair that roof when it's a hurricane. Yeah, them kind of voters. But, you know what I'm saying? The suicide pact voters and shit, the dementia crew. You know what I'm saying? You got a leader that's out there full blown dementia and shit. Like, it's like, what the fuck, man? But hey, you ain't gonna fool me, all right? So I look to the detail, so that shit doesn't work. For the people that look to the detail, none of that bullshit works, okay? But in any case, yeah, these goddamn grifters and shit, billionaire. What's worse than a motherfucker capping for a billionaire grifter, man? How pathetic is that? You know what I'm saying? Goddamn, man. You're the worst dick rider on earth. Like, you just only want to, your broke ass want to act like you can hang out with the billionaires. They don't want your ass around. Like, they despise you. Let's get it straight. But in any case, yeah, let's get on to the next news. This is what's happening in the 24-hour cycle or 48-hour cycle, y'all. So let's get to it and see what it does.
So I'd first like to ask you about this missing photo that my colleague Fallon was just talking about from the DOJ release and the post on X by the oversight Democrats. Put this all together.
Well, nobody knows what happened, but I suspect somebody saw the photo there and demanded that it be removed immediately. So there would only be a handful of people who would have.
You know what it is? It's somebody. Trump was with somebody, one of the victims. That's what it is. And they didn't want that. And they realized that, oops, and pulled it back. And now they're trying to make an excuse that it's not Trump that wanted to put it back. It's one of the victims. Okay.
That kind of power to override what had been, disclosed before. And there wouldn't be that many people who would be, I would say, irrational enough to think that that wouldn't be noticed. But beyond that, it's hard to know who's behind it.
Look, if you just ask them how many times was Trump's name redacted from the Epstein files, do you think they would tell you? Do you think they would even give you an answer? You see what I mean? Like, they would never give you an answer. They're not going to give you an answer. That's going to be an answer. Oh, well, I don't know. You're going to have to ask. You're going to have to ask the many people that work for the FBI. They went through the information, whom I'm proud of. But no, we can't give you that number. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a simple question. Now, let me ask you this. How many times, people in the chat, how many times do you think Trump's name was redacted from the Epstein files? Do you think it's over 1,000 times, or do you think it's less? Put 1 if you think it's over 1,000 times. Put 2 if you think it's less. I'm curious about that because I think who is this in the chat talking about stop bringing drugs in our country? Nobody from Denmark brings drugs to your country, dude. You got it crazy. Your people distribute drugs. The Hells Angels are all over Europe. They've been distributing drugs, and a lot of American gangs. By the way, I don't. You might not know that, but it's true. But in any case, let me see something here. Let me just clean this chat up a little bit. No problem. Just so people can have a real conversation, right? Yeah, We only want willing participants. We don't want to have to drag people into the shit. Yeah, I mean, I think the shit's literally, and I'm not exaggerating, I think it's over 1,000. I think it's over 1,000 times. Like myself, I don't actually think it's less. And of course, if I'm wrong, that's great. It could be 800 times. Who knows? But it's damn sure not 10 times. It's not 20 times. It's not 100 times. Nah. This man is he been with Epstein for 15 goddamn years. Epstein's been having email conversations with all kinds of people about this dude. Like, what the hell? He got the goods on Trump. Did you know that's what he wrote? I have the goods on Trump. I can take him down. I'm paraphrasing, but this is what he said, something like this. So Epstein was all over Trump's ass right before he died. And then he was out there talking. It's whole books written about Trump and Epstein. Goddamn Michael Wolff's book. This dude, he wrote about 15 years of shit, all kinds of shit. I mean, it's like, can you imagine the level of retractions that had to be made just for Trump? It's like, I mean, I don't know what this is. I don't understand how anyone can't understand these Epstein files are basically Trump. And not to underestimate the danger of other people being involved either, because there are definitely more men involved, loads of them, and some people in general, and crimes going on. But Trump is definitely one of the people that is mentioned the most. It have to be one of the people that is just a constant feature throughout the entire thing. Now, I'm going to play a little bit of this and then give a reminder to people. So let's go here.
All right. Well, let's talk about the law, which was signed by the president on November 19th, requiring the DOJ to release all unclassified Epstein materials within 30 days. And yet, DOJ admits it's only a partial disclosure. There's more to come. And many of these documents were heavily redacted. I had my colleague print out some of them here. I mean, for those of you who haven't seen this, okay, this is Grand Jury New York. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Another one from Grand Jury New York. Let's just do one more. Grand Jury. They're all like that. 119 pages worth from the New York Grand Jury file, completely blacked out. Is this release a violation of the law? Could it be obstruction? And how do you interpret these redactions and whether they
keep in mind a full page blacked out? So it almost means it is a picture. It almost means it's a picture. I mean, that's how I take it, because if it was words, you could redact half of it. You see plenty of goddamn pages that they redacted where it's like they just redacted like almost 75% of what is on the page, right? But you can still see it's words, right? But when they have a whole thing blacked out, to me that implies it's a picture. But also not just a picture, but a picture that the issue, if it's a picture, then obviously the issue would not be the individuals in it, right? I mean, because you could always block out their face, right? But to me, it's almost like it's not even, it can't even really be, to me, it seems like if they want to block out the whole picture, to me, it seems like it would be because of other information in the picture that gives away the location. Right. And I know I said that. I think I said that before once, yesterday, maybe, or a couple of days back, because you could block out everybody in the picture. But if there's furniture people recognize, if there's other things that people recognize who've been at that place, then they would know right away whose place it is, whose home it is, where it is. And it also tells me that it likely is not Jeffrey Epstein's place. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it just seems like, because obviously the investigation extended beyond Epstein's own home, right? Didn't it extend beyond his home? I think so. And who knows what other parts of the investigation have to do with other people, other locations, or things like that. This is what I'm thinking. Now, it's just a guess. My guess is as good as anybody else's, right? Because obviously, if you didn't want people to guess, then you would just show them what it is, right? But and they have to know that blacking it out only means people are going to have to guess, right? That's the only option given to the public, right? I wish I wouldn't have to guess, because these files are owned by American citizens. Like, these are actually owned and maintained by taxpayers of the United States of America. Every taxpayer pays into housing these materials. So they actually belong to the American people. This is property of the American people. It's not property of one individual. It's not property of one administration. It's not property of anything like that, a private corporation. This is property. This is evidence now. So it's the American people's business now. And so if they didn't want us to guess, then they would basically do the next thing, and that is let us know what it is. So hopefully in a few days we will find out. But they're asking them right now, isn't that obstruction? Because they were supposed to give a description of what is in the photograph, or what is being redacted and why.
They crossed the line into unlawful concealment.
POV, your brain is racing with ideas, but
Okay, 2 seconds here. Let's see.
It's absolutely a violation of the law, because they were supposed to have turned over 100% of all the materials. And we know that they'd been through them before, because they told us back in July that they had thoroughly scrutinized all of the materials in the file and could not find any basis to think that there would be evidence upon which a prosecutor could make any other criminal cases. So we know they'd been through it. They'd also summoned something like around 1,000 FBI agents to pore over all those materials to look for Donald Trump's name. And to redact his name and to bring to his attention whatever pictures, images, mentions, emails, texts there were. So they'd already been through it. It should not have been difficult for them to produce it according to the federal law, which was passed overwhelmingly by Congress and which Donald Trump purported to support.
Hey,
so
do me a favor. Try not to get into these, like, I saw somebody in the chat say something like, your mama. It's like, come on, y'all. You can criticize each other, but come on. You know what I mean? Like, you're making me have to block you, and that's kind of petty. You know what I'm saying? So just try to engage people that you disagree with without going, deep into the deep, way past what's necessary to give your critical view. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go.
They're in violation in that way, but also these redactions are obviously way sweeping and overly broad.
Hey, Dennis, I appreciate you. I appreciate it, man. God jul till dig Åsik for Bornholm. Yeah, you're in Bornholm. Okay, yeah. Good one to you. Happy holidays, man. Appreciate it.
Law calls for redactions of identifying information relating to specific victims, but they also have to elucidate exactly why a particular redaction is taking place, rather than just blacking out an.
Okay, Shorten. I mean, I'm just saying. I think I timed somebody out. I didn't block them or anything from the page, but I timed somebody out for 30 minutes just because I saw the thing about the mama. Maybe I didn't see all the correspondence, but it's like, come on, man. People, listen. I just want to let people know, like, 50% of the people that watch, 60% of the people that watch my videos are 35 years and older. So, I'm just thinking about them, because some of it is just a little too much. You know what I'm saying? So the disagreements are totally fine. The debate is totally fine. And of course, people, we still kind of you still feel free to kind of, be as you were in everyday life. It doesn't have to be so. It's not like you're at work here, so it doesn't have to be so conservative. But just come on, some of this stuff is just, come on. It's not even worth loading up the chat with certain comments. You know what I mean? Because it takes away from the others that view it later, and the chat is on replay, so people can get some insight from the chat too, you know. So there it is.
Entire document
Enough
like
said.
that, and a lot of the file looks like that, like ransom notes kind of pieced together and just blacked out all over the place.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Yes, a minority perspective with a worldly view. Thank you so much for that, Eric. I appreciate
Do
that.
members of the Oversight Committee have even an inkling of what was redacted in the, 500 plus pages that were blacked out? Can Congress compel the DOJ to at least explain?
Well, Congress
question.
could if the Speaker of the House, who controls the office of the House Counsel, our lawyers, would be willing to go to court. I think, someone was asking the question why the members weren't ready to go to court. Individual members of the House don't have standing to go. The minority doesn't have standing to get in there. If anybody's got standing, it is the majority and the Speaker speaking for the entire House. Now, this was something that was
Okay, so you hear that, right? So a lot of the MAGA supporters, they usually say, well, how come the Dems didn't do it? Okay, well, now's your chance to do something. You're the majority party. You're the majority in each branch of government. You control basically each branch of government. So why don't you want to do something with your power, right? Because the Democrats have never had this amount of power ever. The country has never been, the power has never been individually unified around the Democratic Party. You see what I mean? Or any party before this. You see what I'm saying? So that's a different level of power. When when all branches of government you have control over as a party. So let there be no mistake. There's never been an opportunity for a government or a party to do anything for the American people than there has been right now in terms of political parties. There's no political party that's ever had more power ever in the history of the country. I don't know. Maybe there's a few times where this has happened, but generally this does not in my lifetime. This has never happened where the House, the Senate, the damn courts, and the White House were all one party. And so we need to have that conversation and flip the point around. Every time somebody says, how come Biden didn't do it? We need to say, your party has more power than any party ever has. Why are you not right now doing something? That's your job right now. That's what you're paid to do for, right now. That's what you're paid to do. Why aren't you doing it? Show us what you want. Show us what you believe. Please show us more of what you believe and more of what you want. And notice their Congress is basically totally ineffective. They've passed less laws in this Congress, I think, than in the history of the country. Like, this is a no can do Congress. They don't have issues. They don't really have domestic issues, this Congress. It's like they're not even attempting to pass too much shit, really. I mean, the big, beautiful, ugly bill got passed because all Republicans voted for it and they're the majority party. Simple. But what else? They haven't really been able to do much else. They had to be dragged to the table to do the Epstein thing, like literally dragged by the minority party fighting. And the Republicans fought tooth and nail, against it, so yeah.
Voted on by the entire House, so you think we should be able to push forward, but it just looks like a game of cat and mouse and hide and go seek with the Republicans. They're doing everything in their power to sandbag the investigation that they're pretending to support.
So in a September FBI hearing, Congressman Thomas Massie said the FBI was holding back 20 names of suspected Epstein clients, including figures in the music industry, finance, politics, banking. Kash Patel
Holding back 20 names? 20 names, huh?
denied the FBI was holding anything back, but did we learn
Let's hear that again.
names? FBI hearing, Congressman Thomas Massie said the FBI was
Power to sandbag the investigation that they're pretending to support.
So in a September FBI hearing, Congressman Thomas Massie said the FBI was holding back 20 names of suspected Epstein clients, including figures in the music industry, finance, politics, banking. Kash Patel denied the FBI was holding anything back. But did we learn anything from that front, from this first release of files? And if not, do you expect we will?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. 22 names. It doesn't appear that they're going to do that, but let's see. Let's see if they do.
Well, we should be able to. That 20, of course, is a very conservative estimate of the names that are in there. You don't run a decades-long, multi-billion-dollar sex trafficking ring around the world with just 20 clients or 20 people involved. I mean, this is a major financial, business, managerial operation and criminal operation. So it's going to be a lot more than that. And look, these names will come out. Remember that a lot of the victims know exactly who is in there, but they don't want to cross these, billionaires or government officials or people who occupy real positions of power and influence and control. Because,
look, let's think about this. Let's think about this. If you were running a honeypot, which is, a situation where you have, in this case, this is young minors, right? And you're trying to get men primarily to expose themselves sexually, right? And you're doing it for another government, espionage per se, or you're doing it to blackmail people, whether it be for another government or whether it be for private, purposes or both, right? Why would you target people that have the least amount of influence in society? Why would you target those people? Why wouldn't you target, and let's just be real, Epstein had access to the president. So if you have access to Bill Clinton, to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, he had access to Donald Trump just the entire fucking time. That's a no-brainer. Why would you shoot lower? Like, why would you shoot down to the bottom? Like, you're not just looking for someone petty. If you got the president, then you're going to want some judges, and you're going to want some congressional members, and you're going to want people in proximity to the president, some senators. You're going to want some of that and some judges. You're not going to say, hey, I got the president. Nah, fuck judges, fuck congressional members. Get out of here, Senate. Get out of my way. You're taking up too much space. Find me a Russell Simmons. I want to make records. You know what I'm saying? I want to make rap records today. Like, I don't think you're going to go that route. You know what I'm saying? You might not be against it. Sure, you might take a Russell Simmons if you can, or Michael Jackson. Sure, you might, but would you, would that cloud your vision? Would that make you be like, I'm not interested in a judge who's just right here talking to, by the way, who you meeting with, Trump, tomorrow? Oh yeah, I'm meeting with a judge. I'm meeting with a congressional member. I'm meeting with a senator. Nah, I'm not interested in that. Would you do that? So let's keep that in mind. Let's keep that in mind when we think about this. That's all I'm saying. Like, it sounds to me like you might want to start, just cover this top area first. The area that fucks with your life. Cover those people that have power over your life, that could give judgments over you, that affect your life, that you pay your tax dollars to. Let's focus on them first. Then we can get to the other ones,
I'm certain that they've threatened to make their lives miserable, or at least made implicit threats to that effect. But it's just building up like a pressure cooker right now. These names are
Lucky.
going to come out one way or another.
And Congressman Ro Khanna has proposed an array of options if there is evidence the administration either redacted or withheld information to protect anyone associated with Epstein's crimes. Same if further batches withhold key information. So Khanna floated subpoenas, contempt proceedings, even impeachment of Attorney General Pam Bondi and other DOJ officials. Will Democrats follow through if the DOJ does not comply with the law?
Oh, we're going to use every means within the panoply of powers that may be at our disposal. But just remember that it depends on pulling over enough Republicans to create a majority. Marjorie Taylor Greene is leaving the House on January 5th. And, Nancy Mace is running.
A lot of people, Republicans, are simply stepping down. And, yo, I appreciate that, Doris. I appreciate that. Dorosaurus. Yeah, this is interesting too, because of course, if you want to think about impeachment, then you have to be thinking 2026 typically, because that's when, there's a possibility to have a majority Democrat or majority representatives that want to impeach. Let's say that it shouldn't matter whether it's Democrats or Republicans. Let's just talk about now and what they ain't doing. The Congress right now is not impeaching. They're not going to vote for it. They're not going to vote in favor of it. And the Senate is not going to vote in favor of taking Trump out of power. So these midterm elections matter more than anything. And typically you would wait for 2026 since the Republicans seem to be happy with Trump as president, right? So if you want to remove him, then it would typically happen in 2026. But what's happening right now is people are just stepping down, man. Marjorie Greene Taylor is just fucking stepping down. These people are stepping out. And it could be February. It really, there's no rule. Enough of these people can just step down and it could happen even faster, because that's going to trigger more special elections. And if there's enough special elections, shit, that could happen anytime before 2026. So let's hope and pray, and let's leave the party out of it in terms of this, because it shouldn't matter what party it is. All you need is a majority. That majority can be bipartisan, right? So, right now, they could impeach Trump if the majority wanted it, right? If there was a bipartisan group of congressional members that wanted Trump to be impeached, they could right now. And the same for the Senate. They could remove him right now if there was a majority of representatives, regardless of their party. Even if there's no even independents, even one election and shit. But but that's not what's happening right now. So we need some more new people, before that's going to happen, apparently, but let's go.
For governor and
Pumpernickel, I see you.
Appreciate
that.
I mean, it's not going to be easy to do that. You saw the extraordinary political mobilization that it took on the part of oversight Democrats to get the original subpoena imposed, and then the Department of Justice and Attorney General Bondi have completely been obstructing that subpoena and not complying with it. So it's like pulling teeth. But there remains a massive pressure in the country to get this done. And one of the reasons I think for this, Alex, is that there have been so many child sex abuse scandals and the sex abuse scandals, even of young adults all over the country, whether we're talking about sports teams, colleges, universities, Boy Scouts, churches, you name it. And so there's a huge reservoir of interest in seeing that these materials come out and we figure out how these sex rings actually continue. And remember that QAnon has been promoting this idea for a long time, that there is a ring of very powerful pedophiles who've been procuring underage girls for the amusement of older men.
And guess who's part of the ring? Guess who's part of the ring now? Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, Supreme Court. You see what I'm saying? They're literally protecting them at this point, They are not allowing the American people to judge their performance by withholding the information. You see, and there's only one way the American people can judge the performance of Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, the Supreme Court, anybody else in the Senate on this issue of stopping child trafficking rings. The only way we can judge their performance is by having the information released, which allows us to judge their performance. And right now, it seems like they're not doing that. They're not allowing anyone to know whether they're really doing their job or not. They're keeping the files as if there's something to keep secret.
There seems to be a lot of truth in that. It's just that that ring and that circle revolves a lot around Donald Trump's
What's up, Mish? I see you.
friends, or his best friend for over a decade, Jeffrey Epstein. And now they're doing whatever they can to placate Ghislaine Maxwell, who, as you know, has been moved to a very sweetheart deal prison.
Imagine the place where you actually helped and worked with and participated in child sex trafficking, and they're celebrating you. They're rewarding you in the prison system for it. They're actually saying, no, actually, you're good. You're one of the good prisoners. Imagine that. That's crazy. That is crazy.
Camp where she's getting,
And it's happening under this administration. And what's the guy's name? Todd Blanche? Isn't that Trump's attorney, private attorney now? He's the deputy attorney now for the U.S. But imagine they go in there and it's his office. He's the one who decides. He's the ultimate judge over what should happen with Pam Bondi. And he did not block that movement, that transfer of her to that lighter prison cell. He didn't block that. He doesn't find it in his interest to block it. You see what I mean? Like, so he's basically openly admitting to helping sex traffickers. Like, he's admitting to being cushy, giving that type of treatment to sex traffickers. Like, and he has no problem with coming on the Sunday news and explaining this shit to your kids. Like, he's a scumbag, yo. And he's paid by the taxpayer. Like, fuck it. Why not just elect El Chapo? What the fuck? Because these people are literally, basically helping sex trafficking. You know, it's, of course, they're going to argue that they don't do that. But I would say if you're treating them, if you're giving people a reason to feel like sex traffickers should be like, you should hide who they are, you should hide their clients, you should go out of your way to make sure that instead of them getting harsh punishments, they get harsher treatment. If you're going out of the way to produce that, then obviously anyone else would say, hey, man, you're helping them. You know what I mean? You're not helping the kids. You're not stopping they're making it seem like, hey, sex traffickers got a lot more power than anybody else. They got more rights. That's what they're making it seem like. You know, it's sick.
All kinds of 5-star Trump hotel like treatment in terms of room service and the ability to work out whenever she wants and all those kinds of things. So we're in the middle of this story right now.
Yeah, we are.
Yo, do me a favor, click the like button, y'all, so more people can get access to the stream. It helps the algorithm. Now, let me see here. Let me flip over, because this is, speaking of Todd Blanche's ass, let me see here. Let's just go right into this. This was Meet the Press, right, yesterday. So, so they had a few interesting guests, and Todd Blanche was one of those guests, and he had a show. I didn't see the whole thing. I saw bits and snippets, right? But let me just check, because I want to review Todd Blanche's ass, and he might even be the first person. Look, here we go. Let's go.
Lawmakers say it's only a fraction of what is required by the law. And joining me now is Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Mr. Blanche, welcome to Meet the Press.
Good morning.
Thank you so much.
He doesn't look too happy. You know, he looks like just like a dude that's in between a rock and a hard place. I mean, look at his face. he doesn't look too pleased. He don't look too pleased at all, man. Damn.
So much for being here. Let's dive right in. The Epstein Files Transparency Act called for all files with limited exceptions to be released within 30 days. On Friday, the Justice Department released just a fraction of the overall Epstein files. Why didn't the Justice Department meet that Friday deadline?
Good morning. So it's very simple and very clear. The statute also requires us to protect victims, and so
gaslighting. Time to gaslight you. Time to gaslight everybody. GASLIGHTU. It's like, what the? So now you're gonna go there. Now he's doing it for the victims. He's doing it for the little kids, yo. That's why he did this. Okay.
Good morning. So it's very simple and very clear. The statute also requires us to protect victims, and so the reason why we are still reviewing.
You don't have to break the law to breaking the law. No. Protecting victims has nothing to do with breaking the law. You can protect victims without breaking the law.
Documents and still continuing our process is simply that.
Imagine if everybody said that. I was doing it for the kids. I was selling dope for the kids, Your Honor. I had to do it. You know, them kids got to eat. Okay? Who else going to feed them kids? I had to sell the heroin, Your Honor. It's about protecting the kids. Okay?
To protect victims. So the same individuals that are out there.
How else the victims going to get what they need to get to work, Your Honor? Yo, what the fuck?
Complaining about the lack of documents that were produced on Friday are the same individuals who apparently don't want us to protect victims. So we're going through a very methodical process with hundreds of lawyers looking at every.
We don't. So you see how they turn this around? Even the victims demanding justice on the steps. There's been saying release the files since January 20th. They're even the people that he's complaining about. He's saying, you don't want us to protect the victims. He's talking to the victims too. Look at this shit.
Produced on Friday are the same individuals. Simply that, to protect victims. So the same individuals that are out there complaining about the lack of documents that were produced on Friday.
It's literally the victims complaining about the lack of documents produced on Friday. And listen to what he's about to call them.
Are the same individuals who apparently don't want us to protect victims. So we're going through.
That's the message Todd Blanche has to the victims. Like, man. Yo, I mean, this is where you are a piece of shit. Like, straight up. This is where you are a piece of shit. You know, yo, it doesn't matter what his education and background is, his experience is. This is a guy who's basically saying, hey, my name is Todd Blanche and I'm a piece of shit. And this is how you say it. This is basically how you say it.
Continuing our process is simply that, to protect victims. So the same individuals that are out there complaining about the lack of documents that were produced on Friday are the same individuals who apparently don't want us to protect victims. So we're going through a very methodical process with hundreds of lawyers looking at every single document and making sure that victims' names and any of the information from victims is protected and redacted, which is exactly what the Transparency Act expects. That's exactly what Attorney General Bondi expects. It's exactly what President Trump expects. So that's what we're doing.
But if you don't release these informations on time, you're not protecting the victims, you know. But look, somebody, what is it? Eric, you said V is someone curious about your video editing software, brief description. Oh, right now to do my live streaming, I use OBS to do my live streaming. But the software I use to produce my documentary, the one that's coming out, Hometown DC, that one I use. Actually, I don't know if you ever heard of this. Here it is. Look, have you ever heard of DaVinci Resolve? So I use DaVinci Resolve, which is a Black Magic project, and it's pretty. You know, it does a lot of great things. But I've been editing for like 20 years, man. I went to school in Denmark, to communication school, so for multimedia. Right, some years ago, 2 decades ago. You see what I mean? So I've been doing that also in the U.S. I worked in the U.S. also with a few different companies there. So yeah, so BET is one of the companies. Another company I work with is one that does more corporate media, corporate stuff inside of Washington D.C. and the political realm. But I'm not going to mention them. Their name starts with an R, in case you listening briefly, right? But yeah, let's get back to this one. Let's get back to. But I've been doing that at one point, freelancing for a long time in the U.S. And then also freelancing outside of the U.S. And then, but, I also work within the health industry here in Denmark. So, yeah.
Well, you're talking about protecting the victims. The law directed the Justice Department to, quote, release internal DOJ communications, including emails, memos, meeting notes concerning decisions to charge, not charge, investigate, or decline to investigate Epstein or his associates. That's the crux of what many of the victims or the survivors say they want to see. Why wasn't that information prioritized in the first release, Mr. Blanche?
Well, first of all, it was. And there are numerous documents released on Friday that address what you just quoted from the statute, that address internal communications within the Department of Justice and internal communications between law enforcement and the Department of Justice.
So did y'all hear this part? Did you hear this part? This is a good question that she's asking. This was supposed to be released on the same date. This was supposed to be the 19th, right? This was supposed to be released. So it's not just the materials, the redacted materials, but descriptions of what they're releasing, conversations that the Justice Department has had among themselves about this topic is supposed to be released. All those conversations. Look at this.
Prioritized in the first release, Mr.
You hear this? Listen.
That's the including emails, memos.
This is crazy.
Well, you're talking about protecting the victims.
Here it is. Listen to this part again.
The law directed the Justice Department to, quote, release internal DOJ communications, including emails, memos, meeting notes concerning decisions to charge, not charge, investigate, or decline to investigate Epstein or his associates. That's the crux of what many of the victims or the survivors say they want to see. Why wasn't that information prioritized in the first release, Mr. Blanche?
Well, first of all, it was. And there are numerous documents released on Friday that address what you just quoted from the statute, that address internal communications within the Department of Justice and internal communications between law enforcement and the Department of Justice. But it's for the same reason, because many of those internal communications talk about victims.
So, in other words, the reason why they're not able to do their job is because of the victims, protecting the victims. This is what they've turned it into. So this is going to be their go-to statement, regardless why they couldn't release any of the information on time and why it's not going to be on the 19th. And they're telling people this on the 19th, by the way, the date that is supposed to be released. They didn't tell people this the moment the law was signed into order. No, they waited a month, right? And so they waited until the date that it had to be released to inform people that it's not going to be released. And this is what they're saying. So they again, this is like mediocre. You could say a mediocre job. What they did was, in terms of performance in their job, this was a mediocre performance. And so they're trying to ride that line by saying, yeah, we're not refusing. We're just doing a bad job at it. And so here you are. You can't really say we're not, because it's really just a bet. Basically, they're being passive aggressive. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're doing. They're flipping to passive aggression now and shit, and gaslighting. Like, this shit is mental, yo. This is mental. This is an abusive relationship. If you were treated this way with any person, because this is not personal, this is the government. They get paid by your taxpayers. They work by your tax dollars. They work for you, the taxpayer, the citizen. They actually work for the citizen. And this is what they're literally saying. They're saying, I work for you, but I don't have to do a good job at it. I still get paid. Todd Blanche is going to get his health care covered by the American people. The health care of his children is too. The health care of his spouse is also by all the taxpayers. All his bills flipped for the taxpayer. But there's nothing in there that says you got to do a good job. You know, you could do a mediocre job and you still get all those things taken care of. I mean, that's how it works. That's what he's saying, you know.
Back and forth between prosecutors and law enforcement, talk about victims and their stories. And that has to be redacted. And by the way, everybody expects us to redact that. So the same complaints that we're hearing yesterday and even this morning from Democrats and from others screaming loudly from a hill about lack of production on Friday, imagine if we had released tons of information around victims. That would be the true crime. That would be the true wrong. And if anybody...
So he's saying that if they don't do it this way, you would be accusing them of not protecting the victim. So in other words, if a victim's name happened to come out, that the public would be like, how dare you release the victim's name? Let's say there's an item that has the victim's name and the perpetrator's name. Perpetrator you never heard of. Victim you have heard of before. If now you get an item, right, that's released that has that victim's name that you've heard of before and the perpetrator's name that you never heard of before, you would be like, how dare you release that information? This is basically what he's saying, you know? This is what he's saying. Because, I mean, I don't know. It seems to me like all those goddamn victims, like most of those victims, a whole lot of them seem to be like showing up saying release, release, release. They even saying we going to release the shit anyway. You know, he's acting like most of this. I mean, how much of this information is victims that we never heard of before? Excuse me. I understand if some of the victims don't want their names released, by all means, redact their names. I get that. But are they only redacting victims' names here? That's not what's happening. They redacted Trump's fucking name. Like, can you believe that? He's not a victim. And so they use time and energy on redacting Trump's actual name. Why? Why did they use that time and energy? Who said they were supposed to do that? Where did Congress say do that? Who asked them to do that? Did anybody put a 1 in the chat if you wanted Trump's name to be redacted from any of the Epstein files? Put a 1 in the chat and put your political affiliation. If you're MAGA, if you're a liberal, if you're independent, put a 1 in the chat if you wanted them to redact Trump's name, to use any energy redacting Trump's name. Put a 1 in the chat. And I'm just curious about who agrees with that, because I don't see why I would want Trump's name redacted. Trump said he didn't do anything wrong. So what's the point in doing that? What would the point be? You know, I just think it's kind of weird, you know, and excessive to do that, you know, and also this excessive gaslighting, like saying that everything you do is because of the victims. You're the only person that does anything because of the victims. Like literally sitting here listening to Trump, the guy that fucking hung out with Epstein more than anyone else, his administration claimed to be doing something for victims. I don't know about that.
Out there, I heard Congressman Raskin, the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee releasing statements accusing Attorney General Bondi, Director Patel, and myself of not doing our jobs. If they have an issue with me protecting victims, they know how to get a hold of me. But we're not.
We don't have an issue with you protecting victims. We have an issue with you claiming that you're protecting them by not doing anything else you're expected to do. Okay, that means cover up.
I'm going to stop doing it.
Well, let's talk about the redactions, which you raised. The Epstein Files Transparency Act prohibits redactions, quote.
That's what makes him a piece of shit, him using this argument. I mean, really, this is the worst argument you could use, you know, to gaslight the victims, like claim that, oh, no, I'm not prosecuting people because I'm protecting the victims.
On the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. Has anything been redacted on that basis?
Absolutely, positively not. And that's another trend that is just simply false. There were a number of photographs that were pulled down after being released on Friday. That's because a judge in New York has ordered us to listen to any victim or victim rights group if they have any concerns about the material that we're putting up. And so when we hear concerns, whether it's photographs of women that we do not believe are victims or we didn't have information to show that they were victims, but we learned that there are concerns, of course we're taking that photograph down and we're going to address it. If we need to redact faces or other information, we will, and then we'll put it back up. So we are every way, shape, and form.
You see how he's blending the words? Look. So in other words, it's not an actual victim that said that had any complaint about that picture, because listen to what he said. He also adds this caveat, or victims organizations, victim rights organizations. So it could be now it's just some spooky victims rights organization that unanimously called up. You see what I mean? And said, hey, no, that picture, you got to remove that picture. Listen.
Complying with the statute, which, by the way, but we learned that there are concerns. Of course, we're taking that photograph down. If they have any concerns about the material that was simply false. There were a number of photographs that were pulled down after being released on Friday. That's because a judge in New York has ordered us to listen to any victim or victim rights group.
So a judge has ordered them to listen. You see, like, is that factually even really true? You know, I mean, can we go back and say, did a judge order them regarding this matter, regarding the law? See, this is just unabated bullshit, because nothing can trump the law. Nothing. There's no judge. He's going back in time talking about what a judge said 2 or 3 years ago, or a year ago, or months, or any time before this law. Come on. I mean, I don't know about you. To me, that sounds like bullshit. That law wasn't created 2 months ago. So in my mind, this law trumps anything else. You see what I mean? This allows everything to be released unless it's being litigated currently. That's the only thing that could stop them. You see, this trumps victim rights organizations, even like what he said. Yo, since when have you heard that a victim's right? Any third party could come in and say, no, forget that law. You know, what are you talking about? That's crazy. Like, this is just bullshit. Like, this is not what he's saying. I'm sorry. I'm not a lawyer, but to me, this sounds like that is 0% truth, what he's uttering out of his mouth right there. Not legally, right? So I'm just saying, something the public might want to look into, you know?
Absolutely, positively not. And that's another trend that is just simply false. There were a number of photographs that were pulled down after being released on Friday. That's because a judge in New York.
Yeah, he's building that exactly for Palantir. You're absolutely right, man. Exactly. No, I mean, this is facts, you know? And of course, you know, MAGA is all cool with that, right? They cool with that until the rabbit got the gun and is using it, until a Democrat is in office and then using all of that information, that server information, to go after, you know, whoever they want to go after. Then it's going to be a problem for MAGA people.
Has ordered us to listen to any victim or victim rights group if they have any concerns about the material that we're putting up. And so when we hear concerns, whether it's photographs of women.
So you see, when we hear concerns, see, so you hear, it's like becoming so just vague here. So now all you got to do is hear a concern. Hear a concern? Is the concern in writing? Is who? What's the entity is he talking about? You see what I mean? And it would be bullshit anyway, because that does not trump the law. I'm sorry. Organizations are not the courts. Organizations are not the Congress. Or, you know, NGOs are not the Senate. NGOs are not the government. They do not trump the law. It's just simple.
That we do not believe are victims, or we didn't have information to show that they were victims, but we learned that there are concerns. Of course, we're taking that photograph down and we're going to address it. If we need to redact faces or other information, we will, and then we'll put it back up. So we are in every way, shape, and form complying with this statute, which, by the way, is what President Trump has been asking us.
Somebody wrote in the chat, Delaney Ferguson, why aren't you talking about what you were seeing, especially about Hillary and Bill? Let me ask everybody a question. How many of you saw the last stream that I did? Put a 1 in the chat if you saw the last stream that I did. I'm just curious about that, because people ask me about all kinds of stuff, and it's almost like they don't even listen to the streams. You know what I'm saying? Even if I did do it, they wouldn't even know it. Even if they listen, you see what I mean? It's like, oh my goodness. It's okay to be a troll, though. It's okay.
To do since before he was elected. There's nothing that he has to hide in the
click the like button, y'all. It helps more people get access to the stream.
Epstein files. There never was. And even though there's repeated attempts by Democrats to paint him as being part of the Epstein saga, it's failing over and over again. And so you should not be surprised that the material that we released on Friday, or the material that we're going to release over the next couple of weeks, is exactly what the statute requires us to release, which is everything that we have from this case, with the exception of redacting personal information from victims and other statutes, privileges and things like that. Otherwise, everything's getting produced.
Yeah, Delaney said again, Ferguson said, talk about what is shown, not about what is redacted. Delaney, speed up the stream, bro. I think you're a little behind in the stream. Speed it up, because we're talking about... He's probably going to hear this later. His shit. He don't realize that he's behind in the stream. We're listening to Todd Blanche, the deputy director of the Department of Justice. Okay. And so this is what he's saying is what we're seeing. It's what is being shown. And this is what I'm talking about right now. Okay.
Mr. Blanche, I want to follow up with you on what you just said. Man. You were referencing the 15 files released Friday. They disappeared from DOJ's website yesterday, including this photo of what looks like a desk with a drawer open containing photos of Donald Trump. Just to be very clear, to put a fine point on it, why were these files taken down? You're saying it was at the direction of a judge?
So listen, here we go. So
you can see in that photo.
This is crazy. Look, so let's go back to the photo here. I'm glad they showed this photo. Now, this is the photo they talking about, right? And talk about what is shown, not what's not shown. Well, this is doing both at the same time, by the way. We're talking, Delaney, we're talking about what is shown and what was taken down, Delaney. Yes. Okay. So just so you know, all right. Now, there's some pictures here that were removed, and I believe it's this picture. I'm going to try to blow it up here. Let's see how big we can make it. This picture of Trump down here with some girls down there in the left corner. This is the picture they're talking about, I believe. Now, am I getting that right? Put a 1 in the chat if I got that right. Just anybody else that has seen it. I believe this was the picture right here. People have seen more of these pictures before, but this is the picture. So Trump, and this is not the only picture Trump got with people that were considered victims. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's more. There's a picture going around where all of them have on their bathing suits or something. 5 little girls. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And keep in mind, just to give context to this, also Michael Wolff, the guy that Trump has not sued successfully yet, has been going around for a goddamn, a century now, telling the world that he's seen Trump with, in a picture with 5 nude girls, 5 topless, young looking girls, like not girls like adults, girls as in girls. Okay. Not a woman, girls. And he's been going around saying this for damn near a decade. You know what I'm saying? Unabated. He's been saying this. And Trump has not successfully sued this man one time. Not one time. What? Tell me, when a man is going around saying something for a decade and you don't sue him, you don't say it's a lie, you don't, why do you think that is? Tell me, why do you think that is? Because that tells me that not only is it true, but the FBI and the Department of Justice have that photograph, that photograph exists. Because if it was a lie, Michael Wolff would have to produce it, right? And in this case, he could say, yeah, the Justice Department has it. And then the Justice Department, they would have to chime in and say on whether they have it or don't have it. And if they legally say they don't have it, then he could lose that case. But why aren't they saying they don't have it? Have you ever heard, put a 1 in the chat if you ever heard anybody from the Justice Department or FBI say they don't have that picture that Michael Wolff is referring to? No one has ever said that. Don't you find that strange? I mean, regardless of who you're talking about, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, drinking baby blood, according to Q, right? Right. According to Q, she's been drinking baby blood on Epstein Island. It doesn't matter. Obama, Kamala, pick your favorite people that you hate. Would it really matter? Would it really matter? I mean, if someone said that they saw any of those people with topless girls, right? With a stain on their underwear, Kamala, Obama, anybody else, right? And said that Epstein showed them that picture. And he went out there and said this a million times in media everywhere, wrote it in a book, said that all his conversations with Epstein are recorded audio. Right? I mean, how many? Don't you think it's funny? Don't you think it's weird that the Department of Justice has not come out and said that they don't have any photo? Like, yeah, she was sacrificing pizzas in basements and shit. Hey, y'all, be careful. You know, don't dare eat any pasta tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Order any bolognese, anything, right? Listen, but seriously, don't you think that's weird? Because, of course, if they didn't have it, someone would have said that already. That's a serious allegation to make about your president of the United States right now. You see what I'm saying? And that is crazy. You see? And they work for the president, swore by the president. Don't you think they would offer you that information if it could help the president? But they haven't offered that information. They have refused to not tell the public whether they have that photo. And Wolff even said, I presume the Justice Department and FBI have that photo, because who else would have? Because Jeffrey went and he went and got the pictures out of the safe. That's what he said on record. So, yeah, I think it's pretty much a wrap for a reasonable person, you know, unless you want to really make excuses for a pedo, which is like, why do that? Who does that? Only a damn, I mean, who makes excuses for a pedo? Who does that? I really don't get it. I really don't get it. To be honest with you, I don't get it at all. Usually they say the only person, the typical person making an excuse for a pedo would be a pedo, right? But that obviously is not the case when you think about when you put it in context to voters, because there's voters making excuses for this. So what's their goddamn reasoning? What are these voters reasoning for just having to go along with shit that makes no sense whatsoever, long and just far and beyond what reasonable people would do? Like, what is it? Is it a cult thing? Or
be very clear to put a fine point on it. Why were these files taken down? You're saying it was at the direction of a judge?
Well, you can see in that photo.
No. See, he didn't even answer that. You see what I'm saying? That's how you know it's bullshit. He puts it out there like it could be because of a judge. But when you ask him, is that the reason why you did it? He don't give you an answer. I mean, so a thinking person, again, a person that is being honest knows that this man is lying. And again, if this was your employee, would you accept this behavior? Would you accept this indecisiveness on your dollar? Because that's what you're doing. You're paying the money. Is this what you fucking do? Because if you were a company and you had employees like this and you wanted to work with my company, I don't want to have shit to do with you. I ain't partnering up with you. You got a bad reputation. Like, your employees are fucking lazy, make excuses, just don't fucking work. You're like, hell no. You operate like you going out of bankrupt, like you just gonna file for bankruptcy and turn over a little bit of, turn some shit over and then start a new company and then fraud the American people again. This is not what productive people do in any industry or in any job. You don't handle it this way. But this is Todd Blanche. This is Todd Blanche.
Like a desk with a drawer open containing photos of Donald Trump. Just to be very clear, to put a fine point on it, why were these files taken down? You're saying it was at the direction of a judge?
Well, you can see in that photo, there's photographs of women. And so we learned after releasing that photograph that there were concerns about those women and the fact that we had put that photo up. So we pulled that photo down. It has nothing to do with President Trump. There are dozens of photos of President Trump already released to the public, seeing him with Mr. Epstein. He has said that in the 90s and early 2000s, he socialized with him. So the absurdity of us pulling down a photo, a single photo, because President Trump was in it, is laughable. And the fact that everybody's trying to act like that's the case is a reflection of their true motivation. But the reality is anybody, any victim, any victim's lawyers, any victim rights group can reach out to us and say,
he said everything else but what her goddamn question was. I mean, it's like, come on, man.
Because Epstein.
Let's just hear this one more time. This is really telling.
The direction of a desk with a drawer open containing photos of Donald Trump. Just to be very clear, to put a fine point on it, why were these files taken down? You're saying it was at the direction of a judge?
Well, you can see in that photo, there's photographs of women. And so we learned after releasing that photograph that there were concerns about those women and the fact that we had put that photo up. So we pulled that photo down. It has nothing to do with President Trump. There are dozens of photos of President Trump already released to the public, seeing him with Mr. Epstein. He has said that in the 90s and early 2000s, he socialized with him. So the absurdity of us pulling down a photo, a single photo,
he's like, it's absurd,
President Trump was in it, is laughable. And the fact that everybody's trying to act like that's the case is a reflection of their true motivation. But the reality is anybody, any victim, any victim's lawyers, any victim rights group can reach out to us and say, hey, Department of Justice, there's a document, there's a photo, there's something within the Epstein files that identifies me. And we will then, of course, pull that off and investigate it.
Are you saying that one or more...
That makes no goddamn sense. That makes no sense. That just makes no sense. He's saying you can ask us to do the impossible. Ask us anything to make sure we do not release any of this shit. Please give us an excuse. You know what I'm saying? Like that's basically what it sounds like he's saying. Anybody can write into us anytime and say, hey, there's something there that concerns you. Okay, but did the judge tell you that, motherfucker? Like, I mean, because that's what the woman asked. The woman interviewing you asked a perfectly legit question, and he just dodged that shit like an expert. Like, he dodged it like, fuck, I do this shit every day of the week. Anytime, I'll handle this. Yo, give me the baton, Trump. Let me handle this.
Point on it. Why were these files taken down? You're saying it was at the direction of a judge?
Well, you can see in that photo, there's photographs of women. And so we learned after releasing that photograph that there were concerns about those women and the fact that we had put that photo up.
Notice, so look, she said, so was it a judge? He didn't say it was a victim. He could have said, no, it wasn't a judge. It was a victim. He's not even offering that. So it wasn't a victim. It wasn't a judge.
So we pulled that photo down. It has nothing to do with President Trump. There are dozens of photos of President Trump already released to the public, seeing him with Mr. Epstein. He has said that in the 90s and early 2000s, he socialized with him. So the absurdity of us pulling down a photo, a single photo, because President Trump was in it, is laughable. And the fact that everybody's trying to act like that's the case is a reflection of their true motivation. But the reality is anybody, any victim, any victim's lawyers, any victim rights group can reach out to us and say, hey, Department of Justice, there's a document, there's a photo, there's something within the Epstein files that identifies me, and we will then, of course, pull that off and investigate it.
Are you saying that one or more of the women in one of the photos or several of the photos is a victim or a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein, and that's why you took those files down? And will they be put back up?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Of course, if we knew that, if we had,
What is he talking about then? Exactly? Who said that? Her follow-up question is a dagger. Exactly. What's that, New York cruise? Exact. There's some bullshit. This dude wasted, it's a filibuster. Like, he's wasting people's fucking time with that long-ass description of anybody. And I went to the farm yesterday, and then I saw a little Miss Piggy, and then came back, and then the cow jumped over the moon, and then, no. She's like, what the fuck? Yo, and then she just asked him, so was it a victim? Nope. So, it wasn't a judge. It wasn't a victim. I mean, it's like, what the hell?
One or more of the women in one of the photos or several of the photos is a victim or a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein, and that's why you took those files down? And will they be put back up?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Of course, if we knew that, if we believed that photograph contained a survivor, we wouldn't have put it up in the first place without redacting.
This shit just mediocre, man. This the best you can get for your tax dollars. This is the best you can get for your tax dollars, basically. This some bullshit. And then on top of that, I hope you caught the beginning of the stream, because healthcare and what people pay in taxes and then co-pays, it's embarrassing.
The faces, but notwithstanding what we believe, we don't have perfect information. And so when
you don't have perfect information, what the hell is he talking? Man, when was the last time you heard somebody say something like that? We don't. If anyone could have perfect information, it would be the people paying so much fucking many people with money and health insurance and then to dig through every little piece of information. If the federal government doesn't have the information, then who the fuck does? Like, goddamn, this dude is acting like he's acting like it's not their job to even know. Like, what kind of answer is that?
Obtained a survivor, we wouldn't have put it up in the first place without redacting the faces. But notwithstanding what we believe, we don't have perfect information. And so when we hear from victims' rights groups about this type of photograph, we pull it down and investigate. We're still investigating that photo. The photo will go back up, and the only question is whether there will be redactions on the photo. And of course, if there are survivors in any of the photos, we will redact them as Congress expects us to do, as President Trump expects us to do, and as the Attorney General and Director Patel have directed the department to do.
Okay, let's delve more deeply into...
What's up, you done goofed? Yeah, let me see here. New York Cruise says, bro wished he could redact his previous claims that they were protecting the victims by removing the photos. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is... Man, I don't see how any Republican, any Democrat, any independent, just any citizen would think that these are excuses that anyone is supposed to provide from the federal government level on behalf of their tax dollars. Like, I don't see it. This is a mediocre performance. And look at his face. It pretty much says it. Like, when have you seen someone with this kind of, he just looks like he's almost admitting physically, because you could try to talk your way through it, you know what I'm saying? But body language can't, a sociopath could do the body language now, but obviously he's not a sociopath, but he is definitely a lying ass. He's willing to come out and see his job as the duty to lie to people, but he doesn't seem too happy about it. Like, he don't seem too happy about it, like, with giving this information, And it also, here's the thing, is his information reassuring? Like, that's what it's supposed to be, this press, attendance that he's making, coming here to meet the press and all of it, it's supposed to reassure. I mean, look at his face, man. This motherfucker's face is not reassuring at all. It's
the
not.
redactions? Is any information
Or his answers.
about President Trump redacted in any of the files that have or will be released?
No. That shit, I can just answer that for you. It's like, I don't even know what the question was. I got to hear the question again, but I'm almost sure that it's just going to be a no. Let me see.
No.
You see what I'm saying? Let me go and hear the question again. I just knew something about that question was going to be no, but I didn't. It went by so fast. Listen to this shit.
Okay, let's delve more deeply into the redactions. Is any information about President Trump redacted in any of the files that have or will be released?
No.
It's already been proven a lie. Yo, they already, I don't know how many. Look, let's leave here. Now, check this. Let me go out of this. They already in independent media going like, yo, what the hell is he talking about? Like, they have files already that they released where they redacted Trump's name. How could you do that? Like, this is ridiculous. Let me see here. Let me see something. I think I got Jack Cocchiella. Cocchiera. This is an Italian name, obviously. Cocchiarella. Jack Cocchiarella. Have y'all heard of him? Let's check him out for a second. This is what he did, his coverage.
Todd Blanche just admitted on national television,
obviously, right?
that Donald Trump committed crimes.
Here we go. So big up to Jack. Sorry, I said your name wrong, but big up to Jack because he is like out there. You know, he's doing excellent reporting and substantive reporting. You know, now one of the things I like about Jack is that he curses some of the times. He's not so conservative, but he's spot on. You know, in terms of policy and in terms of pragmatism. You know, turning policy and the political dialogue into something pragmatic that people can understand and utilize. Jack is great at that. You know what I'm saying? Also, he's out of D.C. doing his reporting out of D.C. I don't know if he's born and raised in D.C., but it don't matter. But in any case, he's close to the pulse, right? So let's just hear. He gave a breakdown on this. Now, let me see. Let's hear a little bit of this.
Likely with minors. The same man who went on television on Friday and said that Donald Trump's entire administration would be breaking the law by failing to release the full Epstein files just gave us the best insight into what they were hiding, and it's Donald Trump's crimes. He literally admitted it and then froze up after realizing that he'd been caught. We are going to get into the most disastrous interview we have seen out of the Trump administration as it relates to the Epstein files. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our
Yeah, by the way, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you don't mind on the video. It helps the video go a long way, as you heard Jack explain.
work. Now, before we get into Todd Blanche getting caught, just exposing Donald Trump's crimes and his involvement, the assault against victims of Epstein, I want to start, of course, where Todd Blanche did, trying to lie his way out of why he's refused to release the full files alongside Pam Bondi.
Dive right in. The Epstein Files Transparency Act called for all files with limited exceptions to be released within 30 days. On Friday, the Justice Department released just a fraction of the overall Epstein files. Why didn't the Justice Department meet that Friday deadline?
Good morning. So it's very simple and very clear. The statute also requires us to protect victims. And so the reason why we are still reviewing documents and still continuing our process is simply that, to protect victims. So the same individuals that are out there complaining.
Long pause, yo, Eric. Yo, I appreciate that, Dorosaurus. Appreciate you.
About the lack of documents that were produced on Friday are the same individuals who apparently don't want us to protect victims. So we're going through a very methodical process with hundreds of lawyers looking at every single document and making sure that victims' names and any of the information from victims is protected and redacted, which is exactly what the Transparency Act expects. That's exactly what Attorney General Bondi expects. It's exactly what President Trump expects. So that's what we're doing.
Friars,
Well,
what's
you're
up?
talking about protecting the victims. The law directed the Justice Department to, quote, release internal DOJ communications, including emails, memos, meeting notes concerning decisions to charge, not charge, investigate, or decline to investigate Epstein or his associates. That's the crux of what many of the victims or the survivors say they want to see. Why wasn't that information prioritized in the first release, Mr. Blanche?
Well, first of all, it was. And there are numerous documents released on Friday that address what you just quoted from the statute, that address internal communications within the Department of Justice and internal communications between law enforcement and the Department of Justice. But it's for the same reason. Because many of those internal communications talk about victims. Many of those internal back and forth between prosecutors and law enforcement talk about victims and their stories. And that has to be redacted. And by the way, everybody expects us to redact that. So the same complaints that we're hearing yesterday and even this morning from Democrats and from others screaming loudly from a hill about lack of production on Friday, imagine if we had released tons of information around victims. That would be the true crime. That would be the true wrong. And if anybody out there, I heard Congressman Raskin, the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee releasing statements accusing Attorney General Bondi, Director Patel, and myself of not doing our jobs. If they have an issue with me protecting victims, they know how to get a hold of me. But we're not going to stop doing it.
So that was all obviously gibberish, and good on Kristen Welker for pushing back. But I want to tackle a few of the specific lies that were told by Todd Blanche there.
Yes,
First,
he said that shit is gibberish. It is gibberish. It is gibberish. This is it's like, and this is what you're paying for. And I'm sorry. This is beyond whether you're a Republican or Democrat or independent. This is beyond who you voted for. This should not be acceptable by you, regardless of who you voted for. That was gibberish about child trafficking networks of the highest order. Keep that in mind.
that there were victims that they are so intent on protecting that's what the Trump administration cares about, the victims. If they had actually cared about the victims, they could have released the Epstein files on the first day of this administration. Obviously, could have done it on their own accord. There's also
Look, isn't that what they ran on? They ran on this whole thing. Why didn't they just quickly go through it and boom, if that was their agenda? It's because it wasn't their agenda. They just wanted to run on it. They didn't actually want to do it. Because when you actually want to do shit, you implement it. He could have just said, I'm instructing Congress to do this, to pass a law. I'm instructing the government, the FBI to do this, this, and this. Trump could have instructed this from day one. And they could have been doing it because they swore to follow only Trump's lead, only what he wants them to do, only on what he ran on. Are they doing it? Are they taking any initiative? Or are they just doing it just because... damn, they're making us do this now. Do we have to do it? How are we going to do it? It's not possible to do it.
also been a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee that they have failed to honor. So let's get that out of the way. And the idea that they're not protecting Donald Trump, insanity, considering that there have been at least 16 items that have come off the DOJ's website where they have shown about 1% of these public files, because they're covering up for Donald Trump. 2 posts from journalist Aaron Parnas and Midas Touch literally debunk everything that Blanche just said. Journalist Aaron Parnas wrote last night, new, Jane Doe Epstein's...
Okay, hold on. Let me blow this part up here. Let me see something here. Damn, I didn't actually notice this part. But I did hear the beginning of his reporting, and I thought it was super. Again, Jack does some really great reporting. And let me see, 2 seconds. Can y'all see this? Or hold on. Yeah. Can you all see? Is this? Well, obviously it's going to be too small. Let me try to make it as big as possible here and see. Go after it. There. Here we go. So let's see this.
survivor who reported Epstein to the FBI in 2009 sent the following letter to the Department of Justice today after it failed to redact her name in the release of the files. Midas Touch also reported that DOJ appears to have redacted Donald Trump's name from the allegations made in this exhibit in the Epstein files. Trump's name was in the original release. Now it's blacked out. So they weren't.
Hold on. Yo. So you see that? Hold on. Let's go back there, right there. What he's saying here, look, and apparently this was covered by the Midas Touch. Okay, right, it is. Okay, the DOJ's appear. Hold on, you guys can't see this, so let me. The DOJ appears to have redacted Donald Trump's name from the allegations made in this exhibit in the Epstein files. Trump's name was in the original release. Now it's blacked out. Okay, so let's see what they're talking about here. Boom. This is what they're talking about. Okay, and let me make it a little bigger. Maybe people can see it better. Right, here we go. I'm going to have to remove my screen, but here, let me do that, my camera. Boom. So you guys can see this now, right? So Trump's name is blacked out. You see, this is not the same. Let's go through this again. Let me take it back a little. Boom, boom, boom.
Department of Justice today.
Right, so you saw that part, right? And now let's go back to the to this side here. This is the beginning. Now, do you see any Trump? Let's see if we can see Trump's name here, just for the record. Yeah, let me see how bigger can I make this? How much larger? Let's see here. It's important to make this possible for everybody to review. Let me see, and also for those that don't know, the chat is on replay. In case you know, it should be available in an hour. Okay, this is on HD. So here we go. So we good. It's going to be available an hour after the stream. Now let me see here. Okay, it's not clear enough. Let me see. Can I see this? Well. Okay, but if I go over here. Let me go to the next side here. Okay, and then if I let it play.
Day after it failed to redact her name in the release of the files. Midas Touch also reported that DOJ appears to have redacted Donald Trump's name.
Here we go, Donald Trump's name. So let's go over here. So to the left, you see it. Look, to the left is right here, Trump. You see Trump is right there. Trump's name is right there. Now, if you go to the right, you will see Trump's name has been redacted. And it's not the only area, you know. And so, you know, basically, they're not doing good work anyway. You know, it just in general, regardless of what their perspective is, their work is mediocre, like on this topic. They're not even doing a good job at backing up their own claim regarding what they're actually doing, you know, and they're doing a horrible job at it, like straight up. And if you can't even back up what you're saying, you know, in the public to you know, to a certain degree, why should anyone believe you? I mean, that's basically it. That's basically it.
Name from the allegations made in this exhibit in the Epstein files. Trump's name was in the original release. Now it's blacked out. So they weren't originally redacting the names of a victim, but they went back and revised what they've released to redact Donald Trump.
You see that? So when they went out there, they had already redacted stuff, right? They already redacted stuff. And then they put stuff out. This was early this year. Then this time around, they make the claim that they're not redacting Trump's name. And they put shit out where they redacted his name, which wasn't redacted before. I mean, they're just mediocre. They're just
so nothing
mediocre.
that Todd Blanche says is even remotely true. But what is interesting about the idea that they're redacting based on victims being shown in photos is what Todd Blanche had to say right here when he just admits that Donald Trump assaulted these victims.
produced.
Mr. Blanche, I want to follow up with you on what you just said. You were referencing the 15 files released Friday. They disappeared from DOJ's website yesterday, including this photo of what looks like a desk with a drawer open containing photos of Donald Trump. Just to be very clear, to put a fine point on it, why were these files taken down? You're saying it was at the direction of a judge?
Well, you can see in that photo, there's photographs of women. And so we learned after releasing that photograph that there were concerns about those women and the fact that we had put that photo up. So we pulled that photo down. It has nothing to do with President Trump. There are dozens of photos of President Trump already released to the public, seeing him with Mr. Epstein. He has said that in the 90s and early 2000s, he socialized with him. So the absurdity of us pulling down a photo, a single photo, because President Trump was in it, is laughable. And the fact that everybody's trying to act like that's the case is a reflection of their true motivation. But the reality is anybody, any victim, any victim's lawyers, any victim rights group can reach out to us and say, hey, Department of Justice, there's a document, there's a photo, there's something within the Epstein files that identifies me, and we will then, of course, pull that off and investigate it.
Are you saying that one or more of the women in one of the photos or several of the photos is a victim or a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein, and that's why you took those files down? And will they be put back up?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That is, you hear that? And you have to wonder, because here the question is a very particular question. But it might make you think that the question only involves the victim, is the person a victim of Epstein, because that is generally known at this point to mean Epstein and maybe someone else, right? So notice how he backs away from her being a victim now. Notice how that, because these people are in the picture with Trump, because everyone would obviously make the deduction like, if that's a victim of Epstein and Trump's in the picture, then maybe the Trump is the perpetrator, because a victim of Epstein could have been trafficked by Epstein, right, to another person, right? That's the whole issue right there. And this dude, he just backs right up from that shit. Like, no, I'm not saying that at all. It's like, what the hell? Hold on. Let me see something here. Send up. Come on now. Let's get. What is this? Put user. Yeah. Come on. Send up. Just stop doing that. Now here we go. Now let's get back to this. This is ridiculous. The dude just like, no. I'm not saying it's a victim. Oh wow. That's really fresh. That's really fresh. Thanks, Becca. I appreciate you.
In the Epstein files that identifies me, and we will then, of course, pull that off and investigate it.
Are you saying that one or more of the women in one of the photos or several of the photos is a victim or a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein, and that's why you took those files down? And will they be put back up?
No, that's not what I'm saying. We, of course, if we knew that, if we believed that photograph contained a survivor, we would.
Just think of yourself as the detective and Todd Blanche as the defendant, and he's the one in the chair in the police precinct, and you questioning him, that would be a clear indication to a detective that, not only is it true, but we know he's lying. We know he's purposely part of it now, because we know that he's part of the cover up. So he must have something to do with it. That would be the indication there. You see what I mean? I mean, in a world where there was justice, these people would be going to jail. That's all I could say. They would be going to jail, and this is exactly, poor kid, this dude, I'm surprised he ain't start sweating. I'm surprised he didn't start sweating in the fucking on TV. Like, no. Like, oh my God. But in any case, you all get the point. This is crazy. And this is the taxpayers. Listen, if you want to complain about the amount of money paid for in the U.S. taxpayers, you know, the money that gets deducted from your salary for the poor healthcare system you have, right? And I'm an advocate of universal healthcare. I don't know how many of you have watched the beginning of the video, but we started off with healthcare and data, right? And some comparative data with the U.S. and the EU. Now, here's the thing. We saw and proved there's plenty of waste. That's why it doesn't work. It's fucking privatized waste is what it is. You know, that's where the problem is. That's why you insure less people for more money, essentially, in the U.S., right? Well, it's paid for by the tax dollars. Like, your taxes pay for the fucking corruption. It's ridiculous with the healthcare system. And this is another example of what taxes pay for. Like, these are your employees. Every day you go to work, no matter if you're Republican, Independent, Democrat, or whatever, just a taxpayer, you're paying for his health insurance. You're paying for his mortgage on his home. You're paying for his kids' education. You're paying maybe even for his wife's or husband or whatever. I don't know what he has, or maybe he's alone, but, you know, spouse. You're paying for them too, for their health care and other things, other subsidies. You subsidize his lifestyle because he's supposed to be a professional working for you. He doesn't work for Donald Trump. He works for the American citizens. That's his job. That's his only role. But of course, he's facilitating some other shit, you know, for others, obviously, right? But that's supposed to be his own, you know, that's supposed to be his number one job, working for the American citizen, regardless of what, you know, party you're with, regardless of if you even vote or not, to be honest. He's working for you, taxpayers, right? And this is the best. This is the best right now. Yeah, happy holidays to the people that have holidays around this period of time. But let me just do one more thing before I'm out of here. 2 seconds, y'all. I appreciate everybody that turned out for the stream today. I would encourage those that came late or halfway to go to the beginning of the stream, because it was only all about taxes between the EU and the US and what you get out of that and things like that. So we started our conversation up with that, and I'm going to follow up with that in my next stream, cover another part of what taxes cover. Or no, not taxes cover the deficit, this conversation about what Trump claims is a deficit, proving that that's bullshit, actually, sadly enough. But go back to the beginning if you want to hear that conversation about the taxes. If you're interested in that topic, share the video, click like, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel. I appreciate it. You know, I'm an American born and raised in Washington, D.C., but I only have one citizenship, American, U.S. citizen. My family goes back on both sides to the colonial period in the U.S., but as a grown-ass man, I live outside of the U.S. I live in Copenhagen, Denmark. So I try to bridge some of the gaps between the people so that we can encourage some dialogue and have communication about the facts, which doesn't get, obviously, in legacy media often, right? The conversation about taxes and all that, you haven't seen legacy media go into that in a while. Right. But yet you paying your taxes every goddamn second. Every second you make $1, you are doing that. Otherwise, whoosh, you see. So it's odd how that's not a conversation for legacy media. But in any case, I appreciate y'all. But now let me check into this one other thing. The last thing I want to ask is, did the U.S. Congress pass an extension? Okay, let me see here. Hakeem Jeffries, he mentioned that there was going to be an extension on the healthcare. I just want to end off on that because we see this shit with the Epstein files is going to continue. We don't even have them, so we don't have any choice but to continue the conversation. It could be finished sometime, but it seems like it ain't going to get finished till the next administration takes power, right? That seems pretty obvious to me. But let me see here. Here's the latest on the healthcare subsidies in Congress session, okay? They were in session on the 22nd. That's today. Oh, as of December. No, that was yesterday. Okay, so here it is, or the 19th. I guess that was the last day they were there. No extension of health care subsidies has been passed yet. Congress did not pass an extension of the Enhanced Affordable Health Care Act insurance subsidies before leaving for the holidays. Both House and Senate ended the year without a deal to keep those subsidies in place. The House GOP passed the health care bill, but it explicitly did not include a renewal of the enhanced ACA subsidies that are set to expire December 31st, 2025. A Senate effort to extend the subsidies also failed earlier in December. Enhanced subsidies will likely expire at the year's end. The enhanced premium tax credits, which lowered costs and expanded eligibility, were temporary and were scheduled to expire at the end of the 2025 unless Congress acted. So no extension passed. Those enhanced benefits are expected to lapse on January 1st, 2026, which would raise premiums for many and reduce subsidies amounts unless Congress acts early in the new session. There is still possible January vote, a procedural move, discharge petition by Democrats, obviously largely, and for Republicans. That's what it would have to be until at a later time, right? By moderate House Republicans, and Democrats secured signatures to force a floor vote on extending the subsidies, but that vote can't happen until Congress returns in 2026 because of MAGA Mike Johnson. Okay. Is Congress in session now? No, the U.S. Congress is not currently in session. Both the House and Senate have adjourned for the year. Happy New Year's to you all, Congress and Senate. I hope you have a nice New Year's, all of you all. At least you can. The American people take care of you very well. Clap your hands for the American people that paid these people their salaries. And the Supreme Court too, eating high off the hog, belittling people, that maybe can't afford health care, but help pay these people's salaries in health care. Holiday recess. Okay. The last votes were in mid-December and they're scheduled to return in January 2026. So on that note, it hasn't been passed. It sounds like it's not going to pass. And that's the extent of the situation right now. It is what Americans voted for. And you have to accept your responsibility as a voter, even as a non-voter. Even as a non-voter, you have to accept your responsibility is your outcome. I mean, the only way you can change it is through your vote. And if you didn't vote, then you didn't vote. And that means you didn't want to have a word on the topic. And the people that voted, a slight majority, I guess, or more voted for Trump and the Republicans and MAGA Mike Johnson. And so, they support that kind of stuff in the U.S. And so people will continue to pay, not pay less. Look, I don't know how many of you saw the beginning of the stream, but go to the beginning of the stream. The first half of the stream was about healthcare and taxes in the system compared to the EU and the US. These two, the comparative, right? But through that comparative, we discovered something. Almost the US, half of what you're paying in taxes, over 20-something% in taxes, is actually damn near going out the window to corruption in the healthcare system. And why is that? Why do you EU citizens pay less and cover everybody? Why is that? How is that possible? Well, it's possible because the corruption is reduced. The privatized corruption is reduced. The collective bargaining is more in the EU than it is in the U.S. So, and people vote for that stuff. So, and you have a population in the U.S. that thinks a good idea is to actually pay more, get less, even less now, and pay the same wasteful amount. That's what people are up for in the U.S. And I just have to say, damn. I mean, I'm so lucky I don't live in the U.S. I'm lucky as an American citizen. I live in Denmark. I'm lucky and fortunate, and and understand that it happens because of voters. And even in Denmark, voters tend to be more sensible, more practical, I guess you could say. So on that note, big up to Denmark, big up to the EU, big up to Americans. Hopefully you guys will, how can I say this? Bring out the very best in American values the next election opportunity. Among other issues, but at least with the healthcare, if you're not going to do it with Epstein and sex traffickers, if you ain't going to fix that, and extortion and blackmail and espionage, if you're not going to fix that, at least fix it for the basic folk, the common folk. At least fix it for healthcare and fix it for basic shit like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy, but on that note, everybody, let me know what state you're in and who your healthcare provider is in that state. This way, when the chat replay goes on, people can go in and they can see who they'll be able to better see who is a representative of the troll factories versus who are real people. Because obviously trolls never really answer a lot of questions like that in detail. They know when I'm asking questions like this, it's qualitative. So they try to back up because it gives people a better idea how to judge comments and things like that. So I appreciate y'all. I will be back. Texas. And let me know who the healthcare provider is there. The main one, who what the options are for people. Trolls, you don't have to. It's okay. You don't have to participate in that part. But if you want to, you can. You have the freedom here too. Thanks for at least not being too grotesque in your comments. And and on that note, I'm out, y'all. Be good. Happy holidays. I'll be streaming. I'm not taking a vacation or anything like that. I'm gonna have some days off, a little bit of time with my kids, but I will be in town a couple of minutes away. So I will be able to stream. So on that note, I'm gonna catch up with you guys real soon. And remember, don't be afraid to answer the question about your healthcare provider or your state, the states you live in. That's important too. Also, Jerry Garcia. Okay? So don't forget, we want people to know that folks in the chat are real people and not just bots. So I appreciate y'all. Peace out now. 1. Release the Epstein files, impeach Trump.
Crime babies looking for food, starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day and every clue. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums. With degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep. Leaving 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct. And I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink. But I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and up and we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more. But they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more. But they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers. Cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather. I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double. But nature gets the shit in the way made it subtle. If you stop the machines for a minute, you might hear, but they won't, cause the TV's whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't tear, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't steer. And like an ab, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison.
They want war. All they really want is a war. Diversion every tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. All they really want is a war. Diversion every tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. I know how to see a whack MC when he bustin', but I just back away real cool, no fussin'. I'd rather go kicking in the streets with the bums and use the knowledge to collect what? Some funds. Open a non-profit and build a damn school. And this is the story of how a great king rules. There's many that claim to know the local demographic, but don't have the nerve to tell you the truth. It's tragic, but I do, so sit back and let me spit this shit to you. You feel better when I spit this shit to you, despite the system trying to clamp down on the people. People will learn how to stand up to evil. Not evil that's across the globe, that's too far, but evil that lies in their own backyard. And fighting, it's not an option, they can't win. The government, it's not supposed to represent sin, but then again they do, and that's a problem. So let's go down and figure out how to solve them. It's not fun being a rapper that can't speak, but we do, yes, and plus we make fat beats. Yo, we smoke weed, break up trees. Listen, bringing fat beats, that is our mission. You wanted to see us, so boy, shut up and listen. Thelonious and Big Bennett, brother, check the vision. Mentalities of different realities. Enter the Star Trek room when you hear the boom. I be the Walkman with the super bass. Automatic stop, yes, stereo cassette player. With the delayer, freaky lyrical sprayer. Extraterrestrial rhyme sayer. I be the poetical VIC/master of the ceremony. Tenderoni, won't you come step with me? I'm on a historical journey, kinda like Sigourney. Implore me to represent the attorney that represents my niggas, go figure. It's the card, they call me Uncle Bigger. Niggas love your blunts, down your liquors. I be the parallel to the fiction. You're fixated on this brother's nature. Relaxed behavior, I might save your change. Flip it, rearrange the whole concept. Yo, it's good for all your brain. Insane, psychotic, neurotic, black onyx, and hooked on phonics. Just atomic, bees like a bonnet. Cut with the Asiatic, they all up on it. Rhyme static with the sporadic type of skill. You wonder, is this nigga Vic really for real? It's still, but only necessary in the berry. I'm milk like dairy, they quite contrary. That's scary, but I'm a dog in the prairie. I scurry to grab my bones and just worry. Lyrical flurry, go get your secretary with impeccable diction. My style might vary, so get a hold of your own shit real fast. Fucking with us, we take it right out your ass. Prairie dogs chill while the other dogs howl. Too many dogs
dogs get sent to the pound. Back on the hill, me and my peeps just lounge. Prairie dogs, we keep it on the down. Splatter, don't like gun splatter. We try to climb the ladder, wicked men get better. They make it like splatter, but it really don't matter. Cause you know we coming back to our sons and our daughters. The father, him the one who protects ya. And the mother, she will never neglect ya. Through divine nature, the people respect ya. And in this way I deliver my lecture. See a whack MC when he bustin', but I just back away real cool, no fussin'. I'd rather go kicking in the streets with the bums and use the knowledge to collect what? Some funds. Open a non-profit and build a damn school. And this is the story of how a great king rules. There's many that claim to know the local demographic, but don't